is suing her ex-boyfriend, account manager Tim Lemke, for money she invested in his home and the return of a cat.
Now, this is case number 1 on the calendar in the matter of Abel versus Lemke. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
Miss Abel, you and Mr. Lemke were dating each other, and according to your complaints, you moved into a home that he purchased, and you paid him during the course of the 6 months that you lived there approximately $9,000. You claim that that was money that you want back now that the relationship is over because that money was really used to defray the cost of his mortgage.
Yes.
In addition, you claim that he has some personal property that belongs to you and a cat. Mr. Lemke says that the money that you paid to him was rent, that the cat belonged to him, that he had the cat prior to your moving in, and he has none of your personal property. What was the financial arrangement when you moved in, Miss Abel?
On May 7th in 2004, we discussed how I could help with expenses. Mr. Lemke brought up the fact that about $1,400 would be fair, and I offered another $100 just to call it an even $1,500 because 2 women, my daughter and myself, were moving in, and there's a lot of blow dryer and hot water used.
Okay, so you agreed to pay him $1,500 a month?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and?
And then about May 24th, after I had moved in, we had become engaged, we had a discussion concerning my problem with the fact that I'm giving a lot of money to something that I won't get any return on. And why would I want to give $1,500 toward a mortgage that my name was not on? And Mr. Lemke said, well, I've been thinking about that, and here's what I've worked out. And I have the notes that he jotted down that day to explain to me how this money was actually an investment into his property.
Well, first tell me what he said to you.
He said that because his home appreciates $54,000 a year, over the past 10 years it had done that because it's lake property, that if you divide that number by 12 months and then again by 2 people, it comes out to about $2,200 a month in equity and investment money.
Yes.
And that is what he...
If your name was on the mortgage, and if the house was titled in both of your names.
That part was left out. The fact that he
Well, I understand
yes.
that, but I understand it's left out of your story.
Right, exactly. But he also mentioned on this same piece of paper in an email to the attorney that I'm willing to invest in his home and that upon sale of the home, I would receive the investment money back plus free equity. And that is also in the handwritten note that he gave me.
Let me see it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this note discusses a prenuptial agreement that the 2 of you were contemplating.
Correct.
And what he says is, Gail wants to enhance the aesthetic ambiance of my cabin and is willing to invest in it. Mm-hmm. Any proceeds over $775,000 would be shared in the event of a sale. Are you okay doing a prenup for both of us?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Have you sold the cabin?
No.
Well, your agreement was that when and if the house was sold, you would share in the profits and get your money back. The house hasn't been sold.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So you can't change the agreement because you're no longer together. You could have just as easily worked out an agreement where you said, well, that's fine. If the house is sold, I get my money back, and if we don't get married, I get some of my money back. But you get your money back. The house hasn't been sold. That's your agreement.
But it was a term of our engagement and marriage as I understood it, that that money was investment.
You don't make an investment just because you understood it to be an investment. So you never came to an agreement with regard to that, according to this. Now, you're not suggesting that Mr. Lemke agreed to support you and your daughter.
Oh, not at all.
Good.
Not at all.
So that your $1,500 a month that you paid went for the roof over your head and your daughter's head, the electric that you say you used because you're 2 women that use more electricity for the heating or air conditioning or whatever else. $1,500 a month is reasonable. Get over it. Now let's get to the cat. Did you have the cat before?
Gail got the cat on her 40th birthday as a gift to herself. And shortly after I met her, gave me the cat.
When?
She said, we met February 3rd, and she gave me the cat February 20th.
Were you living together at the time?
No, she was living in her house. And she gave me the cat because the house was a total mess of animal feces and stink.
Whose
in
house?
her house.
Yes.
And she had trouble with maintaining all the dogs and the cats in her house. So
How many dogs did she have?
I'm guessing 5 to 10.
Is that how many dogs you had?
I'm a breeder, Your Honor, and I had 5 dogs, yes, at the time.
How many cats?
2. And I would like to say that my house was not,
Okay.
as he mentioned.
When did you move into his house?
May 15th, 2004.
All right, so between February and May, the cat was in his house.
No, Your Honor, no. I'm sorry. The cat did not leave my home until April. I had not decided to move in with him until April. And at that point, he asked if he could take the cat ahead of time because his daughters would get a kick out of it.
Okay. When did you move out of the house?
November 26, 2004.
And when you moved out of the house, did you take the cat with you?
No, I couldn't, Your Honor. I had to leave in a hurry because of abusive behavior.
Did you come back on the 27th for your cat? Just answer my question. Did you come back on the 27th for your cat?
Not for the cat, Your Honor. For possessions that I needed, my clothing and that sort of thing that I needed that I could take with me.
Good, but you didn't take your cat.
No, I could not.
Why could not?
He had told me that I must leave the dog and the cat there.
Fine. Did you come back with the police and say, this is my cat?
Yes, I did on February 28th.
Too late. Finished. Cat's his. If somebody took my dog, I guarantee you I would be there. I would file a lawsuit, not for my property, but if somebody took my dog and wouldn't let me have my dog, it wouldn't take me from November 26th to February to say,
Your
my
Honor,
pet is gone.
I had been asking him for the cat over
Asking
and
him
over
for the
again.
cat, listen to me, asking him for the cat is not what one does when one is missing one's valued, precious pet.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
The property that you claim...
Says ex-boyfriend Tim Lemke owes for the return of money she invested in his home. Gail also claims Tim won't return her cat.
Go ahead.
I have email of all the times I requested amicably
Just
to
a
get the
second.
cat back.
Starting before February?
Yes.
Show me before
Absolutely
February.
before February. All right, this starts on January 16th, which
No,
until
just
that
a
date.
second. So the first
Yes.
time from November is in January that you have proof of when you ask for the cat back. Is that what
That's-
you're telling me? Let me
that's the
see.
proof, yes.
Let me see.
It starts at the top of the page.
Shh. Where's the cat now, Mr. Lemke?
The cat was loaned to a friend of mine to catch a mouse.
Where is the cat now?
Oh, my house. Excuse me.
That was my question.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you right. Apologize. He was loaned out for a very short amount of time, and she demanded I get the cat back and I could keep the cat as long as I kept the cat at my house. So she came back and verified, and that's in an email that the cat was there, and she said, okay.
Where is that?
It's in an email.
You have it?
Yeah, right here. And when she...
Shh.
Excuse me.
Well, this in January seems to indicate that you wanted to come to his house to verify that the cat was back in his house.
Yes. And I asked again, may I please take my cat back? And he said no, he wouldn't even let me near it. He had the cat missing for a month, Your Honor. That night he gave me 3 different stories as to where the cat was. First it was with an old lady having surgery.
Where are your dogs now?
The one that I kept is with me. The other dogs I placed in other homes because...
And what about the cat that you had?
I had the cat for 6 years.
Where's the cat?
Oh, the second cat?
Yes.
Oh, the second cat?
Yes, the cat.
The cat we're talking
no,
about.
No, your other cat. You said you had 5 dogs and 2 cats.
Right.
Where's the other cat?
Right. The other cat went home with Mr. Lemke's nephew and stayed with his brother. I have that cat back now. I'm very thankful to say.
So you have the cat back?
I have the other cat back, yes, but not this one. But in the top of that email that you see, he said, I will give you the cat back if it's that big of a deal. And I said, yes, it is that big of a deal.
Well, evidently it wasn't such a big deal because you waited 4 months to get it back. Now, what property? Are you telling me that the property that you claim he has that's yours are a soy sauce bottle?
Oh, sorry, Your Honor.
CDs, just a second. A soy sauce bottle, that's what you say in the email. CDs, a tape gun, painting supplies, brush, hand pail, rollers. This is what you say in an email.
Yes, as I discovered things were missing, Your Honor.
I'm not interested in as you discovered. Is this the email that you sent to him on January 19th? Soy sauce bottle, CDs, tape gun, painting supplies, and brush.
Yes, a growing list of things that I needed
I'm not
to
interested in your growing list. Get over it, Miss Abel. Listen to me very carefully. It didn't work out. Put your list down. It didn't work out. You paid rent for $1,500 a month for those 6 months that you lived there. Very reasonable, considering you are 2 people. You made that agreement, and the fact that it didn't work out, and you did not memorialize an agreement that was more specific with regard to the $1,500 that you were paying him is your problem. You cannot visit that on courts. It didn't work out. Put a period. Move on. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
All right, thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out. All parties in the matter of Macias versus Ayala, step forward, please.
Medical coder Alina Macias is suing the mother of her son's schoolmate, business owner Sandra Ayala, for the cost of her son's medical bills. And Alina says Sandra's boy injured her son with a pencil.
Step over there. No, you have...
Yeah, no.
Okay, you too.
What's your first name?
Nathaniel.
And yours?
Jonathan?
Nathaniel, you were injured in school
Right.
with a pencil.
Yes.
You sat down, according to the complaint. You sat down on your chair, and you were stuck in the rear end with a pencil which lodged in your buttocks and had to be surgically removed. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And it is your claim that this young man was responsible.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I assume that you didn't see how the pencil got there. Because if you had seen how the pencil got there, you wouldn't have sat on it, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So you didn't see how it got there.
No, ma'am.
So Jonathan here is going to tell me, because I read the answer about the flying pencil, but I want him to tell me himself how the pencil got on his chair. So we're going to start from turn around and look at me.
12-year-old Nathaniel Mancha says his classmate, 12-year-old Jonathan Ayala, stuck him with a pencil. Jonathan claims it was an accident.
How old are you?
12.
How do you do in school?
Good.
How is your conduct in school?
Good. Too.
Never have any complaints by the teachers?
A little bit only.
Speak up.
A little bit only.
And when the teachers complain about you a little bit only, what do they complain about?
Like sometimes talking and then like a little bit slacking off.
Now, you know Nathaniel, right?
Mm-hmm.
How long has he been in your class?
This year only.
Do you like him?
Uh-huh.
Did you play together?
Uh-huh.
Do you remember the day that he was hurt with the pencil?
Uh-huh. Yes, ma'am.
Tell me how the pencil got on his chair.
Well, I was doing my work and like the pencil was like small, so I didn't want it anymore. So I wanted to throw it to the trash, and
It's just the pencil was small,
yes.
and you're sitting in your seat,
Uh-huh.
and you wanted to throw the pencil in the trash.
Yes.
Where was the trash?
Next to Nate's chair.
And how far away from Nate were you sitting?
At least like 2.5 feet.
So very close.
Uh-huh. But
So now you got this little pencil, and you wanted to throw it away, and the trash was right next to him.
yes, it was right next to his chair.
What were you going to use to complete your work?
Another pencil that I had on my desk, which was bigger.
So you had a little well on your desk where you could keep the pencils?
No, I always put my pencils next to my papers.
Do you have a book bag?
Yeah, in my backpack.
Where is your backpack?
I left it home that day.
What were you wearing to school?
My school emblem shirt and my jeans.
Your shirt have a pocket?
No.
Your jeans have a pocket?
Yeah, but they're tight.
You know you're pretty swift. You think that you're smarter than I am?
No.
You're not, Jonathan. Believe me, you're not. You know where I'm going with these questions?
Uh-huh.
Where do you think I'm going with these questions?
Trying to see if I'm telling the truth or not.
Yeah, trying to see if you could put the pencil someplace else rather than throw. What you're going to tell me is you threw the pencil into the trash. Or
No,
you
I
tried to throw it into the trash.
Yeah, I was going to.
Right?
Uh-huh.
And it landed straight up on Jonathan's chair. And he sat on it. Right?
I didn't land straight on the chair. It was going through the chair when he sat on it because he was...
It was in midair when he sat on it.
Yes, it was pointing up.
How do you got hurt?
Uh-huh.
Well, whose fault do you think that is?
Mine.
Right. Now we're getting somewhere. Why is it your fault?
Because I threw a pencil.
Because you threw the pencil. You had choices, right? You chose throwing the pencil, right?
Right.
So whether you threw the pencil and he sat on it or you placed it on his chair as sort of a joke, it's your fault, right? See, I knew we'd get somewhere. You got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Now you can sit down. I mean, Miss Ayala, quite frankly, you wrote the answer. You told me in the answer that this was nobody's fault. It was the pencil's fault. Oh, next to your mother. It's not the pencil's fault. It's his fault. He had choices. And at age 12, he has to understand that there are consequences to making the wrong choice. His choice was he could have held on to the pencil. He could have put it in his pocket. He could have placed it on the floor. He chose to throw it, according to him, which way out, but, you know, not impossible. Certainly not his fault that he sat down on his chair, right?
Right.
So now your son understands that it's his fault and his responsibility that he got hurt. Do you understand that?
Yes, I understand.
Perfect. Good. Now can I see his medical bills?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of treatment did you get?
They put me under.
Under anesthesia.
Yes.
How many stitches did you have?
1.
Were you uncomfortable for a while?
Yes.
What did Jonathan say after you sat on the pencil? Did he apologize?
No.
Has he ever apologized to you?
No.
Have you spoken to him since this happened?
Yes.
Are you back to being friends?
Yes.
Good. Did you apologize?
No, I never got a chance to.
Well, now's a chance.
Sorry. We're throwing the pencil.
Certainly, Miss Ayala, you don't expect the plaintiff to bear any of the cost of treating her son. They had almost $600 in unreimbursed medical bills, and that you are responsible for. Because as between the two of you, he's innocent and he's not. Whether he did it as a joke or whether he did it because he was negligent or because he wasn't thinking. So you are responsible for those medical bills. Are these your only bills?
Yes, ma'am.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $600, that's all.
Party Judge Hughes, you may step out.
Because it was a
Case number 115 on the calendar, the matter of Ari versus Peterson. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Ladies, have a seat.
All right, Mr. Ari, the defendant is the now ex-boyfriend of your now current girlfriend?
Yes, ma'am.
And it is your claim that when he found out that you were involved with his then girlfriend, he vandalized your car. Mr. Peterson says, I didn't do it.
Right.
When did he vandalize your car, sir?
March 23rd, but it happened, I didn't find out. It happened until the 24th, the following morning.
Tell me the circumstances surrounding him vandalizing your car.
That day, we got home from work.
Who's we?
Me and Jennifer. I went to her apartment. It was probably around 11 to 12 that night. When he came, I was inside with her sister watching television. I heard them arguing. The door comes swinging open. I see her flying to the side, and he comes rushing in. And at the time, I'm lying on the ground watching television. They just moved into the apartment, and he runs up with his hands balled in the fist, facial mannerism, just like, you know, very aggressive, and I can tell he wanted, you know, to fight or something like that. So I stood up.
Had you ever seen him before?
No, I never saw him in
Never
my
met.
life.
So you
Never
stood
met
up?
the guy. So, yeah.
And when you stood up, what happened?
Oh, when I stood up, his whole mannerism changed real
Right.
quick. I was like, what's the problem, you know? And at this time, I started taking off my watch, and he looks at me, he's like, oh, I just want to ask you a question. So we walk outside.
What were you taking your watch off for?
Well, you know, I want to know what time it was, ma'am, you know? So,
Why were you taking your watch off?
well, it was a nice watch, and I just didn't want to mess it up. So,
Okay.
yeah. So anyway, he follows me outside, and he asked me, what's the deal between you and Jennifer? And I asked him, I was like, well, do you know who I am? He was like, no. And I was like, well, I don't know you either, and is Jennifer your girlfriend? And he kind of like paused and hesitated. I was like, is Jennifer your girlfriend? And he was like, well, I was like, well, dude, you know, I don't know you don't know me, you have to ask her. And I left him out there, and I went back inside.
Had Jennifer told you she had a boyfriend?
She told me that she broke up with him around December, January, that like he was assaultive, would hit her and stuff like that. She just got
So
tired
she
of it.
told you at the time she invited you over that
Yeah,
she didn't have a boyfriend?
Yes. We'd known each other for probably 2 or 3 weeks before I ever been asked to come over to her house. It had been like a month before I even came over there. I started working where we work at in January.
Now tell me about the vandalism to your car.
Okay, well, after I left him outside, he did come back in again. He came back in and told her that he wanted to grab his stuff. And she was like, well, you don't have anything here, but whatever, take whatever you want and leave. After he went upstairs, taking whatever, he was up there for a while. When she went back up there, they started arguing again. I got tired of it, and I got up and I was like, look, is there a problem? And that's when he left. He finally left. And then Jennifer and her sister watched him through the window.
Don't tell me what they saw.
I'm sorry, man.
Jennifer, what did you see?
After he went outside, my sister and I were looking out the window. At that point, I seen him like walk around the car, and it looked like he was just dragging his finger along the sides of the car. And he just walked around the whole vehicle, and then I seen him just walk away and get in his truck and leave.
Did you tell Mr. Ari what you had seen?
No, I didn't tell Sean at that time because I didn't want them to fight any longer. And my little sister was there, and I didn't want her exposed to this. How upset Sean was about the whole thing, and how much more he would be upset if he knew that Billy was anywhere around his car.
Well, when did he find the damage to his car?
That following morning, ma'am.
Did you stay over that night?
Yeah, she asked me to because she said she was scared. So.
And when you went out in the morning, what did you find?
A nice little decoration around my car.
Can I see it, please? You have
Yes, ma'am.
pictures. Let's see. Did you speak to him about it?
Right after we called the cops and Sean and the cops left, I received a phone call from a private number on my cell phone, and it was Billy, and he was asking me, how's your friend's car? How's your friend's car? and saying, like, if I was to say anything, it's going to happen to my car, and that I was his and I would always be his and no one else's. I hung up, and he continued to call me back on private numbers, and I went ahead and called the cops.
Okay, I'll hear you.
On March 23rd, I went over to see Jennifer Gifford, who is now my ex-girlfriend. She was my girlfriend at the time. We talked about our relationship for the simple fact that I had just helped her move into this home. It was actually supposed to be me moving into the home, but it didn't turn out that way as her sister moved in. At that time, we were just discussing our relationship. She asked me what was going on. I asked her if everything was okay between us. Basically, I was expressing, like my love for her. She seemed pretty apprehensive to really speak to me at that point. She seemed just not her usual self. I dated her for about three and a half years.
You knew before that things were not right, Mr. Peterson, because you were supposed to, according to you, move into this apartment together. She had been in this apartment for a month, and you weren't living with her. So you knew something wasn't right a month ago.
Well, I have a child.
How old is the child?
3 years old, and that was a complication at hand.
So you knew that things weren't right between the two of you for at least a month.
She actually lived with me in my home, and things were good. We didn't have any complications.
When she moved into her own place and you weren't living with her, you knew that something wasn't right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what did you go over there for at such a late hour?
She received a diamond ring from me. March, when I went over the 23rd.
When did she receive a diamond ring from you?
Christmas.
Okay.
Okay. When I went over there the 23rd of March, discussing issues in regards to our relationship, this gentleman here, the plaintiff, exited the doorway asking me who I was at that time. Now we got myself, this gentleman, and her outside in a very awkward situation. I asked her who was he. She didn't respond. He asked me who I was, and I told him.
What did you tell him?
I said, I'm her boyfriend. Who are you?
Why you went over there so late, sir?
Well, because usually I stay the night there, and I had stayed the night there like several days prior to this circumstance.
Did you take the engagement ring?
Yes.
Get to what happened when you left.
She actually, during the time that we spoke outside, all three of us, me and him didn't come to any terms of agreement whatsoever. We didn't even discuss anything. I asked her if this was the way it's going to be, if I can get my belongings. She allowed me to enter the house. I went and got all my belongings. I had shoes, pajamas, had the ring. I walked downstairs holding all my belongings. And this gentleman was waiting there by the door. And when I walked by him with my stuff, he basically, quote unquote, said, next time we meet, he ain't going to be nice. Closing the door at that time, slamming it, saying, it was an indicator like, you're not welcome here. So at that point, I got in my vehicle. I left home. I heard from Mrs. Gifford the next morning. She contacted me. She said, Sean is accusing you of messing up his car. I said, I didn't do anything like that, okay? And you should know me better than that. We were together 3 years. So basically, that's how it went. And
who do you think keyed his car?
I don't know. It's a new neighborhood, so I really wasn't sure. Like I said, I'd made sure that, when I moved her in.
Who are you?
Excuse me, I'm Billy's mother. My name is Anna Peterson.
You know anything about this case?
I know some. Jennifer Gifford called me that next day, and she said, I think Billy keyed my friend's car. And I says, why didn't you call us and say, Billy's over here, there's a problem? She had no response. I replied, you know us for 3 years. You know we don't condone any kind of negative behavior. She proceeded to cry and say, it wasn't supposed to be like this. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I said, no, Jennifer, you've been in my family for 3.5 years. I've come to love you, and it isn't supposed to be like this, okay? So prior to that, the day before, she had come to my home with my grandchild. Now, if they're not a couple, what is she doing with my grandbaby? She's come to my home the day prior to this happening, this incident. She has my granddaughter. I sit down and we have a heart-to-heart talk. I said, Jennifer, how are things with you and Billy? She says, we are working things out. I said, are you dating a certain individual? Not this gentleman. She replied, no. So at that point, I didn't feel there was a problem at all because they had still been seeing each other. She had been with us in March.
Jennifer, I have a question for you, dear.
Yes.
You didn't tell this gentleman, uncross your hands, you didn't tell Mr. Ari?
Yes, ma'am.
About what happened that night. He stayed all night.
Correct.
Correct? Now, private number called.
Yes.
And you say you spoke to Mr. Peterson.
Correct.
And then he kept calling. And you kept taking the phone calls, or did you let it go to voicemail?
I took a couple, and then I stopped. I called the cops. They came and took a report and went and spoke to him and told him he needed to stop calling me and that if he came back to my house, he would be arrested for trespassing.
Did the police tell you to stop calling her?
Yes. They contacted me through the telephone, and they said that Mrs. Gifford has stated that you and her are not going to be in a relationship anymore, so please do not have any more contact or show up at her home. I said, yes, sir. not a problem.
What would make her call the police, Mr. Peterson?
I believe it lays down a foundation in which there's no pertinent evidence in which can be held against me in this predicament. I mean, given the circumstance at hand, I've been accused of vandalizing a car, and she asked me the next morning if I was okay.
Listen to me, Mr. Peterson. There are only two people that could have vandalized that car. One was you, and one was Jennifer. Now, if Jennifer had a sick pathology, she could have said, listen, when he's sleeping, I'm going to go out, I'm going to vandalize his, I'm going to key his car, and then I'm going to be able to get rid of Mr. Peterson once and for all because he's going to stay away from me. She would have to be pretty nutty to do that. But those are the only two people, in my judgment, who are going to do it. Her sister wasn't going to do it. Her sister doesn't care whether she's seeing you, whether she's seeing him. She doesn't care. I just don't see her doing that, Mr. Peterson.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And later today, Peterson vandalized his car by keying it. Billy admits he was angry, but claims he didn't do it.
You certainly had the opportunity to key his car. And after what you discovered that evening when you arrived at her house, there's no question you had the inclination to key his car. You weren't going to fight him because after he stood up, you figured you weren't going to get the best of this deal.
Probably not.
Probably not. So what's the next best thing to a young man's heart is his car. What kind of an estimate did you get to fix your car, sir?
The cheapest one was to cover up just the scratch without painting it, the whole car.
So, Mr. Peterson, in civil cases, courts have to decide, not beyond a reasonable doubt, that would be a criminal case as to whether you were guilty of vandalism, but whether there is more evidence than not, by a preponderance of the evidence, more evidence than not, as to whether or not I believe you keyed his car. Mr. Peterson, I believe you keyed his car. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,200. That's all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
When you date someone for a while, they may end up cheating on you.
Step forward.
21-year-old Mark Mason is suing his mother's friend, Michael Fleck, for damage to a motorcycle and snowboard. Mark says Michael's children are the culprits.
Is this your mother?
Yes, it is.
Just step up, please. How old are you, Mr. Mason?
I'm 21.
Where do you live?
I live at my dad's and my mom's house, kind of between both of them.
When did this incident happen with your motorcycle and snowboard?
February of this winter.
And where were you living in February?
On the weekends, I was staying at my mom's house, and during the week at my dad's because it's closer to school.
Father have a house?
Yes, he does.
But you stored a motorcycle and a surfboard in the basement at your mother's house.
I was a motorcycle and a snowboard.
Snowboard.
Yep.
Now, Miss Mason, how do you know Mr. Fleck?
We dated a few years ago.
And he came to visit you in February?
Correct.
With his 3 children?
Yes.
What was the weather like the day he came to visit?
It was winter, so in Minnesota and Wisconsin, snowy and cold.
So the children were playing indoors?
Correct.
When did they ask you if they could go down to play in the basement?
I had shown them a tour of the home, and they saw Mark has a foosball table down there, and they had seen the foosball table and wanted to go down and play with the foosball table.
So what did you say?
I told them they could go down there and play with the foosball table, but they were to not touch anything that was Mark's and to stay away from the motorcycle.
And you told that to 3 little children?
Correct.
And then you were upstairs entertaining Mr. Fleck?
We had ordered pizza, so we were waiting for the pizza to get delivered.
Okay. This is your lawsuit, Mr. Mason.
Yep.
The lawsuit wants Mr. Fleck to pay for damage allegedly done by his 3 children when they were playing with a box downstairs in the basement, playing in a big old box. And they bumped up against either your snowboard or your bicycle and caused damage to your bicycle.
That's correct.
Right? He's not going to pay for that.
Whose responsibility would it be?
Your mother's. You were storing items in your mother's house. She had the opportunity to say to Mr. Fleck's children, do not go down to the basement. They would not have gone down to the basement without her permission. If they hadn't been down there playing, then the property would not have been damaged. And your mother had total control over that.
Even though it was an accident on their behalf, it's not their responsibility?
Absolutely correct.
Okay, I would like to say that at first, Mr. Fleck agreed to pay for the damages upon getting an estimate, and he even listed me as a debt on claiming bankruptcy.
Did you declare bankruptcy, sir?
I'm in the process, no, ma'am, yes.
How much did Mr. Mason tell you that the damage was to his property?
The First figure I received was $250.
When did you
Thereabout.
receive that figure?
Say 2 weeks after this incident occurred.
Did you tell him that you would pay the $250?
No, ma'am. I said I would talk to my children.
Then why did you list him as a creditor?
I was told to do so by my attorneys.
You mean any possible person that you might owe money to?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you originally tell Mr. Fleck, Mr. Mason, that the damage was $250?
Yeah, I called around to get
The
estimates.
answer is either yes or no.
Yes,
Then why are you suing him for $877.46?
because once I went to the dealer and got the estimates, that's what they came back as. That was my estimate at first. Me, not the dealer.
Did you tell that to Mr. Fleck?
I did. That was just some online researching that I did.
I don't think he owes you anything. And he says he didn't agree to pay you. He said he just listed you in his bankruptcy because in the event that you got a judgment against him, he wanted to be covered. Is that right, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Any of you children touch the motorcycle?
No, ma'am.
Were you playing in a big cardboard box?
I was.
That's what happens when kids play.
So they're not responsible for their damages?
Your mother gave them permission to go downstairs, sir. Your mother gave them permission to go downstairs. And if what happened down there was an accident, it should have been covered by your homeowner's insurance if you had it. Do you have homeowner's insurance?
No, ma'am.
Should have. Or else your mother's going to fix it. She should not have let Mr. Fleck's children go downstairs if your property was downstairs and she knew it was valuable. You got it? Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Smith, step forward.
20-year-old Robert Aiken is suing his ex-fiancée, 22-year-old Cheryl Smith, for unpaid bills and late fees. Cheryl claims Robert is obsessed with her.
Mr. Aiken, Miss Smith was your fiancée for a period of time. I assume you lived together for a period of time. And it is your claim that you put some money into her checking account in order to pay some bills.
Correct.
You broke up, and she put a stop payment on the bills you had paid. Well done.
Yeah, she did it online. She stopped all payments.
I don't understand how you do that. I like that little checkbook. You write it out, you deposit it. I don't understand the online stuff, but you want that money back.
Correct.
Ms. Smith said nothing could be farther from the truth. You put money into the account. You did pay bills with the money you put into the account. You started to pay some more bills with money that you hadn't put into the account, so she put a stop payment on those bills. She has a counterclaim. She says that at some point immediately preceding your breaking up, she covered the entire rent because you were short, so that you owe her for rent. And in addition, and more importantly, she says that since the breakup, you've been involved in some serious harassment. So the money part should be relatively easy. How much money did you put into her account?
Total, 2 checks of $420 and $316.84, so $736.84.
When?
The $420 was put in on August 12th, and the $316.84 was put in August 11th.
When had you covered the rent, Ms. Smith?
I wrote the check on August 1st.
And how much was the rent?
$662.70.
Was it your responsibility to pay the rent?
We both paid the rent. Both, it was joint money.
Immediately prior to the 11th of August, when did you make your preceding deposit in her bank account?
I would give her cash when I got my check because she was writing all the checks for bills. So I would just cash and stuff of that nature. I have no proof of it. Sorry. I'm a hand person.
Now, he put in the $736. What bills did he pay with it?
Well, my counterclaim is I have bills that total $548.44 that I paid for him, in addition to the rent for $662.70.
It wasn't like a split right down the middle. We were
Well,
just
it should
paying.
be. It's all sounding very good for Miss Smith, Mr. Aiken. What I want to know is, did she make payments for you in the amount of $548? To whom?
She made certain bills.
To whom?
There was a $200 payment to his father.
That was to your father.
That's correct.
What, do you owe him money?
A car payment. It's in his name.
Go ahead.
$63.94 for his Comcast bill.
Uh-huh.
I also have penalties in which I was charged in order to stop the 3 payments that he was unauthorized to make.
Just a second. I want to know what the payments were that you made, not the fees. The payments were that you made.
And without the penalties, there were bills totaling $196 made prior.
Made prior to when?
Prior to August 1st for him.
Forget it. You paid $263 that you can account for, not $548. You know, you look like butter with milk in her mouth. You know, you keep turning it around, and she becomes a more interesting character. 736 minus 263, $473. That's what's left over. Now, we're going to say that he owes you half for the rent, because that's part of your counterclaim. So we're going to take off $330 from that. $143 you owe him. You got it?
Now, what about the payments that she stopped, though?
Good, she stopped them. Good, she should stop them. $143. Gets expensive when you play house. Now I want to hear about the harassment, because that troubled me. You say that he called you over 100 times in a short period of time?
That is correct.
Let me see. Why do you keep calling her, Mr.
There
Aiken?
were different occasions equaling up to it. I was trying to call her in the beginning to try to get some of the money without going into court. And then from time to time, she would be like, okay, well, I'll pay you something. And she'd be like, well, let's meet up here. And say at 1 o'clock, it'd be like 1:30, 2 o'clock. So I'd call her. She'd be like, yeah, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there. So it's just different phone calls basically trying to resolve this money issue.
Well, but I'm looking at it.
It's just continuous.
For instance, I'm looking on the 23rd of August after another. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 18 calls, one right after another.
That would just, as far as that was
Were
just...
you leaving messages on her machine?
No, I didn't leave voicemails. I left, I think, maybe one voicemail. The rest were she'd pick up the phone and then she'd hang it up, and I'd try to get back to her and talk to her, trying
She
to...
doesn't want to talk to you.
I understand that.
Well, but when do you start getting that message, Mr. Aiken, that she doesn't want to talk to you? If, according to you, she picks up the phone and hangs up, she doesn't want to talk to you.
I was just trying to get money, like I said, with these bills,
You
the credit
kept
cards,
annoying
and
her.
cell phones. When the payments got stopped,
You
they shut off
kept
the cell
annoying
phone.
her. Since August, have there been any further calls?
Not since the personal protection order was issued.
Okay, do you have a copy of that?
Absolutely.
Let me see. Was it a permanent order or a temporary order?
It holds for 1 year.
So you consented to this, sir?
Yeah.
Well, if you consented to it, of necessity, the judge had to say to you, you're entitled to a trial, right?
Yeah, we showed up and had a hearing.
Oh, you had a hearing, so the judge found you guilty of harassing her.
Yeah, I told him the story, and I told him the phone calls, and he gave it to her.
Okay, but after that, you stopped.
Yeah, I have not contacted her since.
Anything else you want to tell me about your counterclaim, Ms. Smith?
Yes. As far as for the harassment, this has seriously been going on for a long time. Numerous phone calls and numerous times showing up at my place of employment, numerous times threatening my child, numerous times threatening me. He's physically assaulted me.
After he physically assaulted you, did you remain in the relationship?
No.
When, according to you, was the first time that he physically became violent with you?
On August 7th.
So that was about the time that you were breaking up?
That is correct.
Okay, so this wasn't a history, as you indicated?
No.
Fine. And what did he do to you on the 7th?
On the 7th, he shoved me into a wall and left me captive in the closet of our apartment until I had talked to him.
I don't understand that.
Our closet is a small room. I was in there actually packing some clothes, and he stood in the doorway and refused to allow me to leave.
So he kept you captive there?
Correct.
Because he wanted to talk to you?
Correct.
He's over it. You get over it. He's finished, right?
Correct.
Going to stay away from her? Going to get you $148?
Correct.
Leave her alone?
Without question.
You made a bad choice. Put a period. Move on. Counterclaims.
Found in the matter of White versus Rundell. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated.
Mr. White, you and the defendant lived together, according to the complaint that I've read, for a period of time. And it is your claim that during that time you made a loan to her in the amount of $5,000 as a retainer for an attorney because she was having some legal problems. The defendant says that while she acknowledges that you wired the money into a joint bank account that you had for the attorney, that money was paid back because all that money that was in the joint bank account was put in by both of you subsequently. So the money was repaid.
In my opinion, yes, it was.
When did you start living together, Mr. White?
We started living together in April of '04.
How long had you known each other before you moved in together?
I knew of her approximately a year prior to that.
What does that mean?
Well, I was best friends with her brother and basically met her through her brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when you moved in together in April of 2004, did you move into her place, your place, or a mutual place?
My place.
And, Your Honor, it was July of '04.
She's probably right, Mr. White.
Yeah, we had a birthday party for me in April, so yeah, then it was shortly after that. That's correct.
What was the financial arrangement when she moved into your house?
Financial arrangement, we really didn't establish any. I paid my bills and she paid her bills. She did insist that she put her check into my checking account. That didn't have anything to do with this particular item.
Just a second.
Yeah.
She put her paycheck into your checking account.
That's correct.
How much was your paycheck, Ms. Rundell?
$16.88 a month. And it was not a joint checking account. It was his checking account. I did not have access to that account in one way, in any way.
When did you make your first deposit into his checking account of $16.88?
I believe it would have been the month of July. I moved in roughly maybe the second week in July after we'd returned from vacation.
So let's be on the safe side. Let's say August.
That would be safe to say.
And how many months did you put your paycheck into that joint account?
Every month.
Until when?
Until January. My paychecks ended in January. Unemployment
August,
started.
September, October, November, December. 5 months.
And January.
And January.
Correct.
So it's 6 months. And that's easily verifiable by looking at your bank statement.
No, I don't agree with her putting that much money in there. She didn't have any credit, so she was using my bank to cash her checks. I wasn't aware that she was putting that money into my checking account every time.
This is a savings account statement right here. I could have put it in my savings had I been allowed to. This shows that there was no money that went into this account until a tax return was automatically deposited in the month of March.
Do you have your bank statement, sir?
No, ma'am, I don't. I just have a check that I had wrote her. I didn't even know she had a savings account.
I don't care whether you knew she had a savings account or not, sir. You get a checking account statement every month.
Correct.
And every month you would see a deposit in there.
Right.
And that deposit would not be your deposit. I mean, we know what
Correct.
our deposits are. So she
Correct.
was depositing her check into your account. And that account would also show certain withdrawals if she was using your checking account as merely just a revolving door for her money. She was putting it in
Right.
and cashing it.
She was putting her check into my checking account during the beginning of her stay at my place, and then we were using my check to write checks for all the bills.
It was not in name a joint account, but it was a joint account because that money was being used to pay joint bills.
Correct.
$16.88 per month.
Correct.
Are you chewing gum?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let us assume everything that you say is correct, that for 6 months you put in,
yes,
that comes to $10,128. Now, why did you need an attorney?
I had filed a police report as a mandatory reporter with the police department there locally where I live.
Is it a criminal matter?
Yes, ma'am.
Is the matter still pending?
Yes, ma'am.
And you retained a private attorney?
Correct.
And you discussed that with Mr. White?
Correct.
Is that right, sir?
Yes, I had no knowledge of her making this report.
I don't care about the
Okay.
substance of the case.
Okay.
The need for an attorney, something else.
Correct. We did discuss the need for an attorney, and it was important that she hired a good one for this situation.
So what did you say to her?
So we made arrangements to lend her $5,000 off
No,
my credit card.
that's a conclusion, sir.
We had talked about this and discussed we needed to retain $5,000 for this attorney, and we decided to take this off of a credit card that I have. I had no credit card debts at all. One of the qualities she talked about with me is that I wasn't in any debt. This was a special occasion that I needed to help her out on, so I decided to take a credit card, dump the credit card into my checking account, and give her a check on November 28th for $5,000. She told me when she got her income tax that she would give me half of it in one lump sum and make payments on the rest, and I was fine with that.
That is not true.
Well, tell me what the discussion was, Ms. Rundell.
The discussion, there was never a discussion around the credit card, just like there wasn't a discussion about how we were going to pay our bills when the money was lumped together in the checking account. What we had discussed on many different occasions was how we were going to use the money wisely. This chunk of money, which would have been around $6,000 for the tax return, what were we going to do with it?
You were going
many
to
different. I was talking. On many different occasions, we talked about different things. We talked about we would take a trip, but not too far. Didn't want to spend too much money. We talked about paying a big chunk of it to Bank One credit card, which the attorney came off of. We also talked about paying off his Washington state unemployment money that he still owed when I moved in was $4,000. It was down to $1,500. We wanted to eliminate that payment each month.
All right, let's get back to talking a little bit turkey, Ms. Rundell. It is your defense that you put in your check into the account and you were living like a married couple.
Correct.
And when you moved in together in July, it was your intention that your money be spent on household bills.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't need an attorney until what month?
October.
That's not a household bill. So that what it really did was cut your participation in the household bills in half. Because if you deposited $10,000 into this account to pay for your expenses during the course of that 6 months, madam, and you withdrew $5,000 out of it for your own personal use, then it's very possible that Mr. White is correct, that it was anticipated that you would be repaying this account when you got your tax return.
It wasn't repaying that account. The tax return coming in and was going to be used to pay bills wisely, not just on a credit card. This has nothing to do with paying back the credit card. It has to do with Mr. White and his continued abuse and harassment that has not stopped and will not stop.
It will stop when he gets his money back.
That's right.
Trust me, it won't stop.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Mr. White.
Fiancée Karen Rundell owes for a loan. Karen says she gave her paycheck to James the entire time they lived together.
There isn't a question in my mind that we probably wouldn't be here having this discussion if the two of you were still together. Because if you were still together, you would be continuing to contribute your $16.88 a month into this account. And eventually, this $5,000 would be paid back from payments to the credit card. but you're not together anymore. And Mr. White feels as if he's a fool because he had this outlay of money, and now you're not together anymore. You got your tax return back. There was discussion about paying back this, whatever, Capital One card or whatever it is. Some of the money that he gave you to pay your lawyer. You're still using the services of a lawyer, correct?
Correct.
Have you given the lawyer any more money?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so you're still living off of that $5,000. And he says, minimally, our agreement was that she was going to continue to put her $1,688 into the account so we could at least pay the lawyer back from that money. That stopped. Listen, you want him to leave you alone?
I do.
Pay him his money. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Terrence, good.
Piper Floyd versus Higgs. Step forward.
21-year-old Cassie Priber Floyd is suing her ex-boyfriend, 22-year-old Andrew Higgs, for unpaid loans and for breaking her windshield with his cell phone.
According to your complaint, Cassie, the defendant, who was your boyfriend, needed some money for rent. You loaned him $300, then you had a fight, and he broke your windshield in your car. You want him to fix it, and then you want money for chauffeuring him around to various things, including seeing his daughter.
Correct.
You have a daughter?
Yes, ma'am.
How old is she?
Year-old.
You support her?
Yes.
How much do you send?
I send at least $150 every week.
If child's mother was here, would she tell me that you spend $150 a week on your daughter?
Yes.
All right, Cassie, so let me hear about this first loan that you made him. When was it?
The first loan was May 4th.
Tell me about it.
Andrew was staying in a hotel, and his brother could not loan him any more money, and he needed money for rent to be able to stay in the hotel. So he asked me if I could loan him the money for the rent. He promised to pay me back.
That's a lie, Your Honor.
He promised to pay me back, even if he had to give me his paychecks until it was paid off. I have a witness that was there.
Where did this conversation take place?
At his hotel room.
Where were you staying at the time?
I was living in Harrisonburg.
Were you staying in the hotel?
No, I was not.
Did you ever stay in the hotel?
I stayed one night.
It's a lie.
I'm going to give you one more opportunity, then I'm going to throw you out of here, which is not a good thing. You do want to be heard, don't you?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
How many nights did you spend there, Cassie? And don't make it difficult for me.
Only one night, Your Honor.
In total?
In total.
Okay, now when was this incident with the windshield?
The windshield incident was on June 22nd.
Between May 4th and June 22nd, did he give you any money?
No.
Did you ask him about it?
I asked him pretty much every day for it. He kept saying, I need my daughter's mom child support money, or I need it for drugs. He smoked almost every single one of his paychecks.
Well, didn't that give you a clue, Cassie, that this was not the kind of person you wanted to be around?
For a while, I did stop talking to him. He called me on June 22nd, said he was having problems with his daughter's mom.
What were the problems he was having with his daughter's mother?
He was not paying her child support, and she did not want to let him see her.
What were you doing with your money?
I was paying my rent.
You smoking dope?
No.
Methamphetamines, Your Honor.
Ooh, you doing methamphetamines?
No, ma'am.
That's a kind of nasty story to make up about you.
But actually, Your Honor, we didn't take part in that there for a couple weeks, but she was involved just as well as I was.
So if I asked you if you were doing drugs, the answer was yes.
But the money that she loaned...
Just a sec. The answer would be yes.
Right. The money that she loaned me was actually because she was living with me at the time, and plus half of that went to her nose also.
That's not true, Your Honor.
She was living down there with me because she lives house to house. She can't take care of her kids. She's been living in 7 different houses in the past year because she can't hold a job. She can't do nothing.
Where are you working now?
I'm a waitress.
Where?
At IHOP.
How long have you been there?
On and off for 4 years.
On and off doesn't tell me. How long have you been there the last stint there?
Probably about 4 months. No, give or take 3 months, 2 months. I'm sorry.
I got it.
Cassie Priber Floyd says ex-boyfriend Andrew Higgs owes for loans and a broken windshield. Each is accusing the other of being a drug addict.
All right, my dear. Now you can tell me about the windshield.
I had picked Andrew up on June 22nd. We had gone back to one of his witnesses' houses, and everybody was drinking. He had about 2 40-size bottles of beer. Him and I had gotten into an argument. He was getting rowdy with everybody. So I told him I was going to take him home. On our way home, I received a phone call, and he got upset about the phone call and threw his cell phone up into the dash of my car, breaking and spiderwebbing my windshield.
Okay, let's hear about the windshield incident. Andrew.
We was at the witness's house drinking.
What day of the week was that?
Wednesday. I believe.
Wednesday. What time did you get there? Whose house was it? Raise your hand. What time?
7:30, 8 o'clock.
In the evening?
Yes, ma'am.
And how many children do you have? 2?
Yes, ma'am.
Where are they?
One is with me, and the other one was with her dad.
The one that's with you is how old?
She's 4.
And the one that's with her dad is how old?
She's 2.
Where was the one that lives with you at 7:30 in the evening on Wednesday?
Probably spending time with my father. My parents have joint custody, but I have primary physical custody. When my father and my stepmom have time, they do spend time with her.
That is not true. You got a lot of growing up to do.
Yes, I know that.
You know, her father takes care of her daughter. She gets her maybe once a month.
I got it.
I have her every day, Your Honor.
Listen to me, Cassie. When a court has to get involved and give grandparents legal custody of a child.
That's not what happened, Your Honor.
No?
Her father ended up in jail. And
yes?
I did not want him to have to fight me for custody because he was in jail. My dad and my stepmom do have joint custody of her.
Cassie!
For that.
That is a lot of baloney. Do you want me to tell you why?
Why?
I was a family court judge for many, many years. People in prison do not sue for custody. And the only reason grandparents get custody of children is because a parent is unable, physically or emotionally, of them. That's why a court gives grandparents custody of children. So I'm telling you, you better grow up. You two. Doing drugs jointly or independently not only is wasteful, since you work at IHOP, and you work where, sir?
I'm a truck driver.
Well, a truck driver who does methamphetamines is not a truck driver that I would like to have driving my truck or on the road.
Your Honor, I don't...
Do we understand each other, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now tell me what happened in the car when her windshield got smashed.
She got a phone call from a witness here saying that it was another guy waiting at her house for her. And me and her got in an argument. Instead of losing my cool, I tossed the...
Don't interrupt. Sure, it's true.
I just threw my phone up against the window. And then next day, well, she went back to my witness's house and was laughing, saying that she hit me and everything. And
she hit you.
And next day, she realized that her windshield was broken. She called me up. It's like, yeah, when you threw my phone, you broke my windshield. And she's like, well, I'm not really worried about it because 2 days later, we got back together.
All right. And then you want money for driving him around to see his daughter. Is that right? That's the last part of your lawsuit?
Yes, ma'am.
Forget it. I don't want to hear anymore. Listen, I'm going to make short work of the two of you. So far, between the two of you, you have managed to ruin your young lives yourselves and bring 3 offspring into this world, none of whom you are caring for. You have done enough damage. Grow up. The time you came here to file a case, to come here, you should have better spent doing something productive. Do we understand each other?
Your Honor,
Quiet. There isn't a question in my mind, sir, that if I were to ask the mother of your child whether each and every week she gets $150 from you, I would not get an affirmative response. Maybe once in a while you send it. Put your hand down. Either one of you two ladies the mother?
No, but
I don't care. I just ask a question. Either one of you the mother of this child? Good. Then shut up. You get me? You made 3 babies. You tortured enough people. Grow up. Especially you.
Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated, sir. Have a seat.
Mr. Teeters, how many children do you and the defendant have together?
3.
3. How old are they?
8, 5, 2.5.
You've never married?
No.
For my own information, any particular reason why?
I've tried. Her rings keep getting pawned.
Did she pawn one after your 8-year-old was born?
Yeah.
And after your 5-year-old was born?
Yeah.
You don't learn.
No. I was trying for a family.
She wasn't interested.
You can't make something stay together.
Well, you got a family, 8, 5, and 2. The children live with you?
Yeah, but we don't have 3 children together. We have 2. And I have 1 from a different relationship.
How old is that child?
2.
The last one is not yours, is that right?
No, I raised her for 1.5 years before I found out. So in my eyes, she's mine.
Okay. Your complaint is that you bailed Miss Pyatt out of jail, $1,000. You want your bail money back.
Correct.
Miss Pyatt has a defense. I don't understand it, but I'm sure she'll explain it to me. When did you bail her out of jail?
Bailed her out on Valentine's Day.
What was she in jail for?
Bad checks. She had a heyday, just writing checks.
On whose account?
Hers.
She wrote checks on an account where there was no funds. According to you, there were no funds to cover the checks.
Yes, ma'am.
When did she write those checks?
The late end of 2004 to beginning of 2005.
Did you know about the bad checks?
I didn't know about them at the moment, but after I found out, I took out a set of loans, paid off the first set, and didn't stop her.
Shh, just a second.
It didn't stop her. She kept going. So, I mean, I
You
can't
were
keep
living
paying.
together at the time.
Yes.
How much of a loan did you take out to pay out the first set of checks?
I believe it was $1,100.
Tell me about her arrest on the bad checks.
On the 12th or 13th, she got up in a bad mood, decided to stomp through my coffee table. So I told her she needed to go or I was calling the cops. Called the cops, they picked her up. My daughter found out about it. She didn't want her mommy in jail, so I went to her mother, and her mom offered $500, and I put up the other $1,000. I bailed her.
You went to her mother and got $500.
Right.
And then you put up the other $1,000.
Right.
Because your daughter didn't want her mommy in jail.
Right.
Go ahead.
I shouldn't have to pay for her getting in trouble. I helped her out because my daughter wanted her out. You know, I shouldn't be stabbed in the back for being nice.
So, what is the theory of your court case?
I want my money back. I mean...
Well, I know, but what's the theory of your case?
I'm tired of paying for a relationship that ain't there.
Mr. Teeters, is that matter still pending? The bad checks? Has that matter been resolved?
No, I paid it in full, and not with the money, the bond money.
Just a second. Are you on probation?
No.
What happened?
I paid a fine of $25 apiece, and I paid the amount of the checks that I wrote. And they were wrote in a 3-day period. They weren't wrote.
They were, first of all, written?
Yes, they were written.
Did you plead guilty and accept a fine and restitution, or was the matter still pending? Do you have to go to court? Do you have a lawyer? I want to know what...
No, I pled guilty. And
so you pled guilty?
Yes.
And you were given a fine?
Yes.
And restitution?
Yes.
Who are you living with now?
My husband.
When did you get married?
April 18th.
Is he the father of any of your children?
No, he's not.
How old are you?
I'm 26.
Do you see your children?
Only at her convenience. See, the guy that she's married to is the one she come to me for help from. She come to me saying she'd been beaten, she needed help, wanted away. I tried to help her out.
You mean when she was...
Right
the
before
time
she
you
was...
called the police,
Yeah.
she had come back to your house?
Yeah, and the only reason she was even there in the first place is because she'd been beaten by this guy.
Is that true?
I think if you were beaten, you'd have bruises and marks.
I don't ask...
Yeah. No, it was not true.
Why did you go back to Mr. Teeter's house?
Because I was angry with Ed, and I needed...
What were you angry with Ed about?
He was keeping track of my income tax money and being controlling.
How long had you and Mr. Teeters been separated when you went back?
For 10 months.
So is what you're telling me, Ms. Pyatt, that you went back to him and said, Ed is being controlling and I don't want to live with him anymore? Can you help me? Or did you say that he was being abusive?
I said I was mad at him and angry with him, and that I wanted to rent my own home for my children and me, and if he could help me out.
A church rented her an apartment or a motel room for a battered woman's thing, and that's where they only did it for one day, and I took over. And as far as her renting the place, I've got receipts here from where I pawned all of my rifles.
Listen to me very carefully, sir. I'm going to give you some advice. I understand that you're tired of paying for her, but she did not borrow this money from you, and you did not loan her this bail money. According to you, you called the police because she was acting out in your home. The only reason you went to bail her out of jail, according to you, is because your daughter was crying and said, I don't want my mommy in jail.
And she had agreed that me and her mother both get the money back.
No, well, I didn't hear that, sir.
I could have sworn I told you earlier that on the phone, whenever I talked to her, she had agreed that her mother get back the $5 and I get back the $1,000.
When did she tell you that?
That was the night before I bailed her out.
She called you, I assume?
Called her mother's.
And you were at her mother's?
Yes.
What were you doing there?
I was asking for help for her. Where April called, they'd been contacting me, trying to get up bond money.
And what did you say?
I said I'd do what I could.
Go ahead, I'm listening.
He was at my brother's house when I contacted him, and I called and asked him that I had some money in my purse, which was $820, and that the rest of the money I needed help to come up with, if he could contact one of my aunts or someone to help me come up with the rest of the money. But he ended up that night in the same jail I was in for possession of felony drug charges. So we were in jail together.
Not my drugs.
And I have proof
just
of
a
that.
second. Were you in jail that evening?
Yes.
For what?
I got picked up for wearing the jacket she was wearing whenever she got arrested.
Go ahead.
He was in the same jail until the next day when he was released. He came and brought my money that was in my purse, the money of my mom had gave him.
Well, how much was your bail?
$1,500.
And your mother gave him $500?
Yeah.
Leaving $1,000 left?
Yeah, $180, I don't know where it came from. He put that up somehow, and then $820 was in my purse when I went to jail.
Where did you get $820?
I worked, and my income tax check had just came in.
Where were you working?
A grocery store.
And you kept your money? You didn't put your money in a bank? You kept
I
it all in
couldn't.
your
I wrote
purse?
bad checks.
She'd have to be saving for months at $5.15 an hour.
No, I had income tax returns of $1,700.
Show me.
Okay. And I also have where he went to jail and an ex parte order and a copy of what I spent my income tax on that he was keeping, my witness. That's part of the reason why I left.
You have the stub from this check that you got?
No, I don't believe so.
How much did you receive?
$1,700 and something.
What'd you do with it?
I cashed it.
Where?
At my husband's bank, U.S. Bank. At the time, he was just my boyfriend.
So your husband had a bank, and you cashed this.
Mm-hmm.
When did you cash it?
It was at the beginning of February, I do believe.
So you still had this money 2.5?
A month and a little over a month.
No.
I had part of it. I didn't have all of it. I only had about
I don't believe you.
I was saving it so I didn't go to jail.
I don't believe you. I don't believe that you had $820 in cash in your pocketbook. Don't buy it.
Yeah, I had it.
I don't believe you. I also don't believe that there was a loan.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
You got to prove that to me, sir.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
He was stalking you?
Yeah, he hid out in the bushes.
He was stalking.
The mother of his children, April Pyatt, owes for bail money after she was arrested for passing bad checks.
Now, I believe that you called the police on her, and they came, they arrested her. Your daughter said to you, I don't want mommy in jail. You felt badly according to you, so you went to her mother to see how you could both put together enough money to get her out of jail. That's what you told me.
Okay, and I work hard for my money. I've got custody of my 8-year-old daughter.
No, we don't. We don't either one have custody. We haven't gone to court.
I got where DFS gave me primary custody over her until it goes to a judge.
That's not a legal document, is what they told me. And they told me that...
If it wasn't a legal document,
that's just so
you'd be
she
allowed
don't
to-
have to change schools. It's so close to the end of school year.
Okay.
I have papers from my lawyer stating.
Why do you have to agree to withdraw from any and all drug activity?
Oh, that's the allegations by her. I've taken multiple UAs from DFS.
I have proof of that where he's been arrested.
I've taken multiple UAs from DFS that they drop on me on a random. To where if I would have failed one of those, my daughter would be in her custody and would not be in mine now.
Make sure the test pass.
Along with, I went ahead and I agreed to her restraining order, even though on here it's got the dates and everything, and I pulled these rifles on her. But that's where I also got conned into, please help me get a place, my boyfriend's abusive, and pawned my rifles.
Oh, God, what a dysfunctional group. I feel sorry for all of your children.
Yeah.
Your daughter is living with you?
Yes, ma'am.
And he's kept her away from me for 2 months. I haven't even got to see her.
Listen to me, madam. You think that I believe that you moved back in with him even for a couple of days because you told him that your boyfriend was being controlling about your income tax return money?
I just asked him
It
to
didn't
stay there.
happen that way, Miss Pyatt. It didn't happen that way. You went back to him and said he's beating me up and he's assaultive. I need a place to stay, and he helped you out. I mean, the fact that he's stupid, he doesn't get any rewards from that. He also did not make a loan for this.
I wouldn't say he was beating me up. That's
Miss Pyatt, certain things make sense and certain things don't make sense. It doesn't make sense for somebody to take you back into their house with 3 children, only 2 of whom are his, biologically. If you said to him, I'm not getting along with my boyfriend.
He was stalking me the whole time. He kept begging me to come back.
He was stalking you?
Yeah, he hid out in the bushes.
He was stalking you the whole time, so you went back to him? Is that what you're telling me, Miss Pyatt?
It's stupid on my own
You're an
part,
idiot.
yeah.
Anyway, you're an idiot, but you're an idiot who doesn't owe him any money. Mr. Teeters, I suggest that you put it down. I suggest, Mr. Teeters, that if you believe that you are a more appropriate caretaker of your children than the defendant, that you follow through with any custody proceedings that are currently pending. I think that both of you, I don't know how old you are, sir, but certainly she has to grow up. You work?
Yes, I do.
What do you do?
Roofing.
Good. You keep your hands to yourself. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She'll come to me and appeal to...
Mrs. Garlinghouse, step forward, please.
24-year-old Jeffrey Dexter is suing his ex-girlfriend, 24-year-old Helen Garlinghouse, for the return of his stereo and furniture. Helen says Jeffrey won't return her property either.
All right, let's see if we can get a consensus on some facts here. How long did you and the defendant live together, sir?
Me and Miss Garlinghouse lived together approximately 7 years.
How long did you and the plaintiff live together?
We were together for about 6 years, but we lived together off and on. There's times where he moved out for months at a time.
You have 1 child together.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right? How old is that child?
5.
Boy or a girl?
Girl.
Mr. Dexter, does your complaint that Miss Garlinghouse has some of your property?
Yes,
Miss
ma'am, she
Garlinghouse
does.
says you have some of her property. And in addition to having some of her property, you've been harassing her. She's got a counterclaim. The 2 of you come here after creating this mess and want somebody else to clean it up. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, ma'am.
So let me see if I can do this relatively quickly and painlessly. Painlessly for me, mostly.
Jeffrey Dexter says his ex-girlfriend, Helen Garlinghouse, owes for the return of his property. Helen is countersuing for the return of a rifle.
What property does she have that you claim belongs to you?
She has my stereo, which I have a receipt for.
Stereo. And when did you buy the stereo?
2003, I believe.
When did you and Miss Garlinghouse separate?
In 2005.
When in 2005?
End of April, beginning of May.
So this stereo provided music with the two of you for about 2 years.
Yeah.
Who do you live with?
I have my own residence, and I have a part-time live with John.
Who's John?
He's my boyfriend.
You have your own residence and you part-time live with John. What part of the time?
Mainly weekends or sometimes through the week.
Why?
I don't like being at my residence that I am right now. I mean, I worry about Jeff driving by my house, people stopping by. He's actually sent 2 different people over to John's house trying to find out if I'm there, if John's there, if John lives there, what John's last name is. And the manager.
Where is your child when you're moving back and forth?
My child's with me.
You think you ought to start acting responsibly for your 5-year-old?
I do act responsible for my 5-year-old.
Not if you're shuttling her back and forth between your house and his house.
She has a room at each house. She has belongings at each house.
I'm just going to give you a very simple phrase, and that is, if you tell the truth, you don't have to have a good memory. You know what that means?
Mm-hmm.
You don't think that they keep me in this job because I'm stupid, right?
No.
Right. Did you buy the stereo?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
How did the stereo come to be left at her house?
During the process of us breaking up, I moved my clothes and his personal belongings, took with me at the time. I come back to retrieve my other stuff, and she had called the cops on me, stating I was trying to beat her windows in. I was trying to beat her windows in. My cousin was there. He wasn't able to appear today. I went to get my stuff. She would not let me have access to the house.
Now I got it. Don't say anything.
Okay.
Stereo. What else?
The couch.
Couch. When did you buy the couch? Shh, I don't want to hear you. You see I gave you a chance to talk and he was quiet? Button up.
2005, like January, February.
What else?
There's miscellaneous CDs. I have several items.
Listen to me. I'm not interested in your miscellaneous items.
Okay.
You have a 7-year relationship and a 5-year-old child. Don't bother me with apple coras and CDs. I'm not interested in that. Stereo and a sofa that you say you bought in 2005.
Yes, ma'am.
And what items do you say he has of yours?
He has my .30-06 rifle that he had given me for Christmas.
Just a minute. He has a rifle?
Mm-hmm. It's a hunting rifle.
Did you give her a rifle for Christmas?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Yes, he did. I wish I had the videotape. I don't have the videotape on me.
A rifle? What else?
My luggage that he had bought me, he took out of the garage the day he came and got his car.
Luggage. What else?
And my ball hitch that when he came and got his car, he wasn't able to move his car. And
a ball hitch?
It's a ball hitch.
You know what that is?
Yes, Your Honor. It plugs into the tow package on the back of a Blazer.
Who has the Blazer?
I do.
Has it.
Who has the ball hitch?
I have it.
Okay. What else?
And then that's all I have except for the harassment.
You're not going to harass her anymore, are you, sir?
I have not been harassing her.
If you are or have been harassing her, you're not going to harass her anymore.
No, ma'am.
Your Honor, he's broken
first, I'm speaking. First you get the lecture, then I'll deal with the property. Your 5-year-old daughter doesn't need this aggravation, needs for you to behave like adults. I assume that when you had this child, you didn't bring her into the world to make her miserable. What you're doing is making her miserable. You have to start acting responsibly. Your child needs a home, not 2 homes. Not unless you're taking her to the French Riviera for the spring and Palm Beach for the winter. Do you understand? If you're taking her across town to live part-time with John, that's unreasonable. Child needs a home, not 3 homes, 1, 2, 3. Do you understand? So, grow up. And a child doesn't need to have a stressed parent, which means if you're stressing her, cut it out. You made a mistake, put a period, and move on. I'm going to prepare an order. Listen very carefully. You want your luggage and ball hitch packed?
Yes, ma'am.
You want your stereo and couch packed?
Yes, ma'am.
You can make an exchange 5 days from today.
She didn't pay.
I'm speaking. Listen to me very carefully. Grow up. Stereo, sofa, luggage, ball hitch. They either get exchanged at the same time or they don't get exchanged. Then just say, I'm going to buy a new stereo, a new sofa, I'm going to buy new luggage and a ball hitch. Do we understand each other?
Yes, ma'am.
Grow up! Goodbye.
C. Reyna is suing the mother of her son's former friend, Carrie Elliott, for the cost of a Sony PSP. Gracie claims Carrie's son, 15-year-old Matthew, borrowed the game and never returned it.
Miss Reyna, it is your claim that your son, this young man, I'm sure, loaned the defendant's son, this young man, I'm sure, some video game equipment, I don't know what it is, something that you had purchased for him, and that this young man either lost it or it was stolen, and you want Mrs. Elliott to replace it because it's her responsibility since he is underage. A big boy, but underage. You don't know anything about this, only what your sons have told you. Is that right?
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
So why don't you have a seat and exchange places with your sons? What's your first name?
Daniel Ortiz.
Daniel. Yours?
Matt.
Can you see?
Yeah.
Is this your father?
Yeah.
Yes. Try
Yes.
yes. Does your father tell you to cut your bangs?
Nope.
Your mother?
No.
I mean, can you read okay with those things?
Yeah.
Hardly see.
Reminds me of one of those dogs.
What?
Reminds me of one of those dogs.
Wouldn't be in my house. You know, you go to sleep one night, wake up in the morning, voila, I can see your eyes. I'm not giving you any suggestions or anything, just if you'll hardly know what's going on. Matt, borrow this equipment.
Toward the end of September,
Tell me about it.
we were in the cafeteria, and we had it out watching movies.
What was it? What kind of equipment was it?
Just PSP, and
I don't know what PSP is.
it's a handheld game, like PlayStation 2, kind of.
What were you doing bringing that to school, Daniel?
Keep myself active. I have open period.
I mean, wouldn't it be your time be better spent during open period if you were, I don't know, studying chemistry or reading over your history notes? You see what happens with the hair down your ear? You go like this, you get a tick. I'm telling you, Matt. I've seen a lot of people grow up like that with ticks because they've been trying to get the hair out of their eyes. How did you go home with it?
He let me borrow it. For
What
the
did you
day.
say to him?
I said, okay, I'll borrow it.
That's not... Matt, he didn't say to you, would you like to borrow my game? And you said, okay, I'll borrow it. You said, can I borrow it?
I was playing it, and the bell rang to go to class, and he's like, well, you could just take it home and play with it for the rest of the day and stuff. And the next day, I went to give it back to Daniel, and he says, no, just hold on to it for the rest of the day, you know, I ain't got my bag. So I was like, no, I got a game to go to. I got to go to the football game and stuff, and he's like, well, just hold it, because I ain't got nowhere to put it. So we played for Columbia High School, but we went to Skyview, so we had no locker rooms and stuff. So we're just supposed to set our stuff inside the locker room of Skyview. And the school is supposed to lock the locker room doors, but I don't think they did. So a bunch of kids went in a locker room, and they stole a bunch of other people's iPods and CD players and money out of their wallets, and they urinated all over our bags. And his PSP was in my bag, which I got his PSP stolen out of there, my CD player, and everything out.
Is that what happened, Daniel?
No.
Let me hear.
October 15th, I let him borrow it, which is on a Monday. Then around lunchtime, I asked, when are you going to give me it back? He said, Friday. I asked him on Friday, when are you going to give me it back? And he said, well, let me use it a couple more days because I'm going to go hunt with my dad over the weekend. And I said, okay.
Did you go hunting with your son in October?
Not on the 15th.
I don't care on the 15th or any day. I said, did you go hunting with your son in October?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So I let him borrow it, and he wasn't on school on Monday, which is the following week. And I got a hold of Matt, and he didn't have it.
What did he say?
He says somebody else is using it.
Who was using it?
No one. I didn't give it to no one. I don't know where that came up.
I can hardly tell, sir, because I can usually tell people telling me the truth by looking in their eyes. It's very hard for me to see. You look like a shaggy dog. So I can't tell what's going on behind your... I'm serious with you. I cannot tell what's going on behind your brain because I can't see your eyes. If I had a clip, I would use it. Now, if I believe your story, when did you tell Daniel that his equipment was stolen?
The day right after the football game, which would have been that Friday.
Did you make a police report?
The cop wrote something on it, the school resource officer.
Can I see that, please? Well, first of all, Daniel, this report is written in September, not October. So you are mistaken with regard to the month. Do you understand?
Yes.
How good a friend were you to Matt?
Pretty good.
May I say something?
Sure.
Daniel tries to buy his friends with gifts. He gives them presents to hang out with him.
Miss Elliott, you're not helping your son.
Well,
I'm going to tell you why you're... Because your son already told me that he borrowed it.
Right.
So if you're trying to say that this young man needs friends so he buys them, that has absolutely nothing to do with your son. Because your son borrowed this and was supposed to have returned it.
Right. And he
so it had nothing to So it had nothing to do with him saying, listen, I want you to take the equipment and keep it because I want to buy your friendship. So I don't know what possible relevance it is that you claim that he tries to buy friends. It has nothing to do with this case.
Well,
if I believe your son, it has nothing to do with this case.
Right.
So then what do you have to tell me?
Well, I also have to tell you that Daniel has a problem with picking up things that don't belong to him. I have 2 other reports from the officer.
What does that have to do with this case?
Just that he's out of control.
What does that have to do with this case? You know, I was sympathetic before you opened your mouth. But after listening to you and making excuses for him, I want to tell you that I'm totally turned off. Totally turned off. Because your son acknowledged that he borrowed it, acknowledged that he didn't return it, for whatever reason. And I don't care if somebody else told him to put his backpack in an unsecured area where there were no lockers. He knew he had a valuable piece of equipment, and it was his responsibility to safeguard it. You just made my job much easier. How much did you pay for it?
Can I also turn
How
this
much
in?
did you pay for it?
Ma'am, I have the receipt right here.
It's from the officer.
I'm not interested.
The game itself was $249.82, and there's a game with it as well with the receipt. I put on my credit card.
I only have to ask you one thing, Mrs. Elliott. Does the report that you have there indicate that Daniel was in any way responsible for the theft or vandalism that occurred at high school?
No, it does not.
Then your son's responsible. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $307. That's all.
24-year-old Brandon Heber is suing his former roommate, 24-year-old Aaron Buchanan, for shooting him in the finger with a BB gun. Aaron claims Brandon antiqued him while he was sleeping.
Mr. Herbert, how old are you, sir?
I'm 24.
And you?
24.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Herbert?
I'm a bartender.
Full-time?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you been a bartender?
For about the last 3.5 years.
Same place for 3.5 years?
No, I just started working there. I worked at another bar.
For how long did you work there?
2.5 years.
Why did you leave?
Had a conflict of interest with the owner.
What kind of conflict?
He liked to get drunk and not run his business and leave me there by myself.
What are your work days, Mr. Herbert?
I work 6 days a week.
Which 6 days?
Tuesday through Saturday and Sunday. Every other Sunday.
Now let's get to you, Mr. Buchanan.
Hello.
Have you been thinking while I've been asking Mr. Herbert these questions?
Yes.
What do you do for a living, sir? What?
Recently I was just terminated from my job.
You
but
were
it wasn't.
exterminated from your job or terminated from your
Terminated?
job?
Did I say exterminated?
I don't know. I couldn't hear.
I'm sorry. Yes, I was in a hospital kitchen, but I had been terminated because I'd gone in on my day off and tried to fax some papers. So.
And try to what?
Fax some papers.
So you were fired for theft?
No.
Well, that's what it is, theft.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry.
There was a time when you were roommates. Are you still roommates?
No, we're not.
Since when?
January 15th, 16th, since the incident that I am being sued for.
So you were roommates and you all got drunk?
Not together.
Separately, individually, but you were all in your house,
yes,
drunk. How many of there were you?
Just the three of us. This is my witness, Courtney Hollowell. He was there with
Do you work, Courtney?
Yeah, I do.
Oh. So this is what the case is about, Berg. These two idiots got drunk together. Mr. Herbert fell asleep on the couch. This is according to what I read. While he was asleep, two wanted to antique him. Now, do you know what that means?
No.
Mr. Buchanan's going to tell me what that means.
I was the one who was antiqued.
Oh, you were antiqued?
Yeah, he's idiot number two.
Oh, he's, excuse me, idiot number one. Antiqued idiot number two.
Yes.
So now, idiot number one is going to tell me what it means to antique someone. So what did you do, Mr. Herbert, to Mr. Buchanan?
Antiquing means you get a handful of flour and you throw it in the face of your friend that's passed out at the time.
So when they wake up, if they ever wake up, they're all full of
They're
flour.
all covered in flour. It looks like they're an antique.
That's what's called antiquing.
Gee, I missed out on that.
You missed out. I missed out on that. Missed out on that. And then Mr. Buchanan woke up,
yes,
startled,
right,
and he got a BB gun. And he started running around after Mr. Herbert with a BB gun, right?
Running after him? No, I wasn't running after him.
What were you doing with the BB gun?
Oh, I was going to go into his room and mess up some of his stuff, shoot some of his belongings.
And because these two idiots, and maybe number three, I haven't spoken to him yet, have been totally vandalizing this house where they're staying, there were no knobs on the doors, you know, just a hole where the knob used to be. So why don't you tell me what happened, Mr. Herbert?
You want the beginning or from where you
I have other things to do today. I'm a busy person.
Okay, basically I was barricading the door with my body. I was inside my room, holding the door shut because I don't have a lock on it. He had the gun through the hole in the door, shooting randomly into my room. So I was trying to grab the gun with my right hand and point it towards the carpet. And that's when my finger was right over the barrel as he shot.
got lodged in there. I have x-rays of where the BB
I'm not
is.
interested in the x-rays.
Okay.
Can we look?
You want to look?
I want to look.
You want to see the BB in his finger?
see the BB.
I'm more interested how this 24-year-old man who was trying to hold the barrel down so it was pointed, you know, towards the carpet, got his finger in a situation where his finger was covering the barrel.
I want to know that one, too. I
You
just
know?
want to see.
You know? But you want to see?
I just want to see.
Oh, okay. Show it to Bert. He's interested. I'm not interested. I'm not interested in either one of you.
That's a BB. You want to see it?
It struck up against my bone. It was pretty painful.
Now, what did you do after you got this BB stuck in your finger?
Well, I did not realize that it was in my finger at the time, so
I wonder how come you didn't realize it was in your finger.
I had a little too much to drink that night.
Voila. Light bulb. Okay, so after he shot you, you let him in your room? Did he shoot up your room?
No, then I opened the door and said, well, man, you just shot me, and we pushed each other a couple times.
Well, so you did
Shot
realize you were shot.
Oh, yeah, I realized I'd been shot. I didn't realize it was actually in there. I thought it just like
Where'd
maybe
you think
bounced
it
off
went?
or bounced off somewhere.
Go ahead.
The next morning, I woke up with excruciating pain. I went to the emergency room because it hurt so much.
Did you have insurance, Mr. Herberer?
No, I don't. I had to pay cash out of pocket for everything.
And how much did you pay?
A little over $1,400 altogether.
You're suing him for $2,000 because you want some money for pain and suffering and lost wages.
Yes.
Well, I should be suing for pain and suffering because I've had to listen to this nonsense of two drunks. And what do you think happens when you get drunk?
I never got drunk and been shot with a BB gun. Not once in my life.
All right, Mr. Buchanan.
Hello. I was his former roommate.
Do we have the story? I don't have to hear it
We have
from
the
you.
story. Where would you
We
like
have
me
the
to
story.
start?
I want to hear your explanation as to why you believe you are not responsible for his medical bills.
Yeah, I am not responsible for his medical bills.
Well, tell me why.
I had gone to sleep, like at 4:30 in the morning. I had to work the next day. These two guys come in and they throw flour on me. I was very drunk. I grabbed the air rifle and I started shooting in his room randomly. And
Well, I understand that.
yes, and I'm shooting through his door, and he grabs the barrel, the end of the barrel, and puts his finger at the end of it. What fault is it of mine when I don't see through the door? All I know is, you know, I would never do anything malicious towards this man.
I understand that, Mr. Buchanan, but that's what happens when you drink. When you drink, you don't have control over what you do. I assume that if they weren't drunk, they wouldn't have thrown flour on you. They thought it was fun and silly. Let's say you didn't have a BB gun or an air gun in the house, but you had a .357 Magnum. And this idiot would have put his finger in the barrel of the Magnum. He figured he could stop the bullet. Mr. Buchanan, I don't think you are responsible for his pain and suffering. I think that he caused some of that himself.
Yes.
I don't think you're responsible for his lost wages. I think he caused some of that himself, and he's partially responsible for what happened that day. But I think you are responsible for his medical bills. You have to bear some responsibility for being stupid.
Right.
And for being drunk. And I would suggest to you, Mr. Herberer, that if this is what happens to you when you drink, you're in the wrong business. People who get drunk should not be bartenders. That's a very bad thing.
I personally wouldn't trust a bartender that doesn't drink.
You wouldn't? No. Well, Mr. Herber, you're going to be a very successful person. I know I'm going to read about you in Forbes 500 someday. I'm convinced of that. Judging for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,400. That's all. Step out.
Parties are excused. Matter of Stevens versus Van Doggen. Step forward.
Nebraska Stevens Jr. and his father, Nebraska Sr., are suing Nebraska's former roommate, Brian Van Doggen, for unpaid rent. Brian claims the two men violated his civil rights.
Mr. Stevens Sr., you are here primarily because your name is on the lease to this apartment.
Right.
But you don't live in the apartment. Your son lives in the apartment.
Right.
Why don't you have a seat, sir? Thank you. Mr. Stevens, the defendant was your roommate. You lived together for a brief period of time. You claim he moved out owing you a month's rent.
Yes.
And Mr. Van Doggen, while he acknowledges that he did not pay rent for the month of November, and in fact lived in the apartment for the majority of the month of November of 2005, claims that he does not owe you this rent because you violated his civil rights. That's your defense.
Right.
And Bird and I are all ears, Mr. Van Doggen.
Nebraska Stevens Jr. claims former roommate Brian Van Doggen owes for rent. Brian, a future law student, is claiming Nebraska and his father violated his civil rights.
Now, tell me about those civil rights of yours that were violated, Mr. Van Doggen.
Well, during the 4 months I lived there, I agreed that on the 15th that I would pay rent. And so, you know, a couple times I was late, but, you know, I couldn't get a hold of it.
Stop banging on the table. It's
Oh, sorry.
irritating to me. Just a
Right.
second. You agreed that you would pay rent on the 15th of the month.
Right.
Any particular reason for that, sir?
I get paid once a month on the 15th.
And you don't budget well, because rent is usually due on the 1st of the month.
Right. I made the agreement with his father that I would pay on the 15th, and he agreed.
Is that right? 15th he was supposed to pay rent?
Yes.
Good. So now we come to November 15th. He didn't pay your rent.
Right. So what happened was, you know, on Saturday in the morning.
Stop banging on that table.
Sorry. About 8 o'clock in the morning, his father would arrive and knock on my door and walk in my room. I was sleeping and, you know, stand and say, "Where's my rent money?"
You mean after the 15th?
Right.
So he knocked at your door and walked in and said, "Where is the rent?"
Right.
Keep going.
So that's it. I didn't think that's fair at all. You know, I'm there trying to sleep. You know, the only time I get to sleep in is on Saturday because I go to school Monday through Friday. And
You go to school for what?
I'm a law student.
At a law school?
No, community college. I'm just getting my AA.
Well, you got a long way to go, Mr. Van Doggen. Long way to go. How many credits do you have towards your bachelor's degree?
Right now, I've got, well, 4 because I only went through 1 semester.
Well, let's figure it this way. I think you usually need 128 credits to graduate from college. So you only need 124 more credits to graduate.
Yeah.
And then you need 3 years of law school.
Right.
So I would strongly urge you not using a tape of your performance here today as an application for law school. Is what you're trying to tell me, Mr. Van Doggen, that because the senior Mr. Stevens knocked at your door and came in at 8 o'clock in the morning and woke you up, that your civil rights were violated and therefore you don't have to pay rent?
Right. Well, there's also an emotional side, too.
Well, I want you to tell me about the emotional side. Bert and I are absolutely breathless in anticipation, waiting to hear the emotional side.
Well, Zach over here, you know, likes to party a lot. He would sleep for 15 hours a day, wake up about 10 o'clock at night, and then party the rest of the night. Do you know what I mean? He had the level, the radio was blasting, things like that. And you know, I'm trying to study.
Yeah, I know those 4 credits will get you.
Yeah, well, I didn't get those credits because I couldn't sleep and stuff during the night because he was out partying and stuff. I couldn't concentrate, I couldn't study, and then I couldn't sleep because I was up to 3 o'clock in the morning trying to tell him to turn the TV down.
Sounds like a civil rights violation if I ever heard one.
We shall overcome.
We shall overcome is right.
Okay, step forward, please.
Veronica Benet is suing her sister, Valerie Benet, for reimbursement for counterfeit money orders and bank fees. Valerie says she was the victim of an internet con man.
Don't look so serious, it's only money. And I'm going to resolve it for you, okay?
Yes.
Miss Benet, this is your sister. What's your first name?
Veronica.
What's your first name?
Valerie.
Parents had a thing for V's, did they?
Maybe.
Got a Victor in there? Some?
Nope.
Valerie, you met a bum on the internet.
Yes, I did.
Where was he from?
He claimed he was from the United Kingdom.
And you began an internet sort of relationship romance. And
yes, ma'am.
Then according to sister, and according to you, he sent you some money orders.
Yes.
Why did he send you the money orders?
He had wanted me, he said he was moving back to the United States and wanted me to get a home for him and a vehicle and a few different things for him to come back and reside in the United States.
Did he say he had ever been in the United States?
He said he was from Texas and that he had been there and he's been gone for probably about 8 years.
Did he say where he was going to work?
He said he had owned his own business, he had stores and different things, and that he would need a vehicle and a place to reside so that he could open stores in the United States.
Did you check on any of these things?
No, ma'am, I didn't.
So he sent you the money orders. How much in money orders did he send to you?
It was $4,920, I believe.
And what did you do with them?
I gave them to my sister and asked her to deposit them in her account because I had no bank account.
What do you do for a living?
I babysit.
Is that how you support yourself?
Yes.
Why don't you have a bank account?
Just moved back from Harrisburg and didn't get one. I'd only been at her house a couple months previous to that.
So you gave the money orders to your sister, and what did you say to her?
I said, could you deposit these and give me the money after they clear?
And she did?
Yes, ma'am, she did.
Took them to your bank?
Yes, I did.
They accepted them, they put them in your account, and they gave you money, and then it turned out that these money orders were fake.
Yes.
Counterfeit. You want your sister to reimburse you?
Yes, I do.
What'd you do with the $4,900?
It wasn't 40, it was probably like 36. I had rented him a house, well, an apartment, and got a vehicle.
What do you mean you rented him a house? Where?
In the town that I live in.
How did you rent him a house?
Previous to that, we were talking on the internet, and he asked me to make a few phone calls, and I had found an apartment that I explained to the people that he was coming from the United Kingdom, and I looked at the apartment.
So you put down a deposit?
No, I paid for the whole apartment. I paid everything for it.
What do you mean you paid for everything?
When I received the money orders and as much as I could get when I rented the apartment, I gave them the money and told them that we would want the apartment.
How much did you give them?
$1,300.
Show me.
I don't have proof of that.
What do you mean you don't have proof? You must have a lease.
I stayed there a month and a half and moved out. I didn't have a lease or anything. Nothing was signed.
So you actually lived there?
Yes.
Oh. Now, what about this vehicle?
I purchased a car for about $850, and with everything, with the insurance and everything, it was about $1,100.
Who was driving the car?
No one anymore. It was kind of a crappy car, so it just...
But you were driving it?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
So you spent the money?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, why shouldn't you have to pay your sister back?
I didn't send the money orders to myself. I don't...
You spent it! Somebody's going to be out the money. Should it be her or should it be you? You know, first I thought that you took this money and then this guy said, all right, now send it all to me now because I need it. Even though it was your stupidity that did it by not checking on him, I had some sympathy for you. But now you tell me you lived in the apartment for a month and a half, you bought a car, you drove it.
He did request that I send him money.
And you did that?
I tried to. They wouldn't let me send through the Western
Well, so far we only have $2,400 that was spent out of the $3,600. Where's the rest of the money?
Miscellaneous things.
What's miscellaneous?
I got some furniture and...
Where's the furniture?
At my house.
Is there something wrong with you? I mean, is there really something wrong with you?
No, ma'am.
Well, there is. I don't understand why you're here. I don't understand why you don't take care of your responsibilities. All this money was used for your benefit, not for this internet person. Can I see statements from your bank with regard to the money orders?
Just take it all.
Is not an answer, Miss Bainey. You've been incarcerated.
For 21 days.
For what?
Giving somebody a ride who had broken the law.
Oh, you're a fast talker. That's not a crime. Giving somebody a ride who had broken the law is not a crime. Not anywhere in any penal section in this country. What were you convicted of?
Receiving stolen property.
That's more like it. She's a scam artist, your sister.
No, ma'am, I'm
She's
not.
a scam artist.
I did her a favor. I asked her if these money orders were real, and I actually gave her $3,719, not $3,600, and plus $230 in bank fees from when they took the money back out of my account.
You have the letter from the bank advising you that these money orders were...
No, but they have it listed there on my bank thing that they were all returned, and I have a copy of the money orders themselves.
Yeah, I'd like to see those.
The first page is just from my bank, what I signed when I deposited them. I mean, I filed a police report and everything, and they just couldn't do anything about it because they call it a Nigerian scam.
I'm not sure whether it's a Nigerian scam or a Valerie scam.
When the bank told me that I was negative in my account, I did make her get back on the internet, and I honestly talked to this guy myself. And he said, oh, everything's fine, you know, and then he just disappeared. And his name was Alex.
I don't care what his name was. Your sister used the proceeds of these fake money orders for her own benefit.
No,
I know.
not, it was for what he asked
for her
me.
own benefit. She lived in the apartment. She drove the car. She used it for miscellaneous expenses. She used it to buy furniture that she's still using. She used the proceeds of this for her own benefit.
I did what he asked me to do with the money.
I don't care whether you say that you did what he asked. It was only used for your benefit. This wasn't a scam. It was her scam.
No, it wasn't, ma'am.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yours. I read the papers, and I really thought that this... We've received those kind of internet things. You know, you're going to win $200,000. All you have to do is send me $50,000. I'm going to send you $200,000. I mean, every idiot
I
that's
spoke
received...
to this man for a very long time.
Don't you get what I'm saying to you? You took her money and spent it on yourself.
I did what he asked me to do with the
You
money.
took the money and... Don't you see everybody moaning? You took the money and spent it on yourself. And you still have some of the products of that money. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $3,700. That's all.
Mira versus Robles. Step forward.
Michael Mara is suing his former friend, 28-year-old Tanya Robles, for a loan to secure an apartment. Tanya claims Michael didn't live up to his end of the agreement.
Mr. Mara, according to what I read in the complaint, you and the defendant had been friends for a long time. And she came to you about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, told you she needed some money. You were reluctant to give her the money, which you'll explain to me. Ultimately, you did, with the understanding that she would pay you back at a rate of $65 a week. I think the original loan was how much, sir?
The original loan was $2,000.
She paid back some and then stopped. Ms. Robles acknowledges that this was a loan. She has a rather unusual defense, which I will let her explain to me. How long have you known her?
Approximately 13 years.
From school?
Roughly, yeah.
What do you mean roughly? What does that mean?
High school. She was a few years younger than I.
But you were just friends?
Yes.
And you maintained contact during these 13 years?
Yes.
Tell me when you loaned her this money.
In October of 2004, she needed to move into an apartment because she had no place to live.
Why did you have no place to live?
I had just come home from basic, Your Honor, from basic, the Army.
Did you go into the Army?
Yes, ma'am.
For how long?
I completed basic training.
Well, once you complete basic training, usually means you go on to the second step.
I was supposed to go back in the end of the summer.
Miss Robles, what?
I was discharged, Your Honor, for a medical. I have an...
Okay. So when you completed basic training and needed a place to live, you called him up and said you needed some money.
Correct.
Had no family?
I was staying with my mother.
Well, if you were staying with your mother, why couldn't you get a job so you didn't have to borrow money?
I had just started a job, and I wanted to get on my own 2 feet. I have 2 children.
Where were the children when you were in the Army?
They were with their father. You can't be a single mom in the military.
Where are your children now?
They are with their dad.
All right, Mr. Morris, so she came to you in October. She wanted first, last, and security, and you said?
She wanted me to co-sign a loan for her. I wasn't thrilled about it. I know that she's irresponsible. But eventually I did. Unfortunately, when I got to the bank with her, the bank people told me that her credit was so bad that they didn't even want her name on the loan.
Got the papers?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see them, please. Okay, go ahead.
Anyway, so instead of handing her the $2,000 cash, I deposited it in my bank account and wrote her a check and made her sign it, to be repaid by, and her signature.
Well, Mr. Morrow, this is interesting. You gave her a check for $2,000, but you had to pay back $2,300.
If she had paid me every month for the 3 years, the interest would have ended up being $2,300.
So do you have a piece of paper that the two of you agreed on, that she would pay you the $65 a month for 3 years?
It was a verbal agreement.
Go ahead. So what happened?
She paid me every month, almost for a year. Sometimes I had to chase her down, but...
How many payments of $65 did she make?
About 12.
Not about. You can't do an about.
Well, October to October, so 12.
She pay you in check or cash?
Cash.
Go ahead.
Come November of 2005, I tried to contact her to get the loan payment. Her cell phone was shut off. I spoke with a mutual friend. They said she had quit her job or lost her job. I did not know where she lived. She had since previously gotten married and moved. I did not know where she was. I tried speaking with her mother and had her mother contact her to call me, and I never heard from her. So I've been paying the monthly payment.
Let me see. All right, well, she owes you $1,520, according to you. Okay, we acknowledge the fact that you took the money.
Correct.
Acknowledge the fact that you had an agreement to pay him $65 a month for 3 years.
Correct.
Now I'll hear your defense.
I'll go back a little bit. Back in February of 2005, Mr. Mara has a drug problem. We had a conversation about it that he would not continue doing the drugs.
Where were you when you had this conversation with him?
We were at my house.
Okay. February,
That's
just a second. February 2005.
Correct.
You were still making the payments on the loan.
Yes. He agreed that he was so sure that he would stay clean.
Just tell me what he said.
If he were to stay clean, I will continue making payments on the loan. If I were to find out he was unclean, I do not owe him anything on the loan.
And that's what he said to you?
Correct.
It's ridiculous.
That's your defense?
Correct.
Well, so far, let's hear the rest.
I continued making the payments until October. When I went to make him his last payment of $65, I went to his house. I had my 2 kids with me. He is also the godfather of my 2 children. He did not say one word to them, didn't say hello. He was kind of jumpy. He had a friend with him who I assume is doing the same thing.
Don't tell me what you assume. He had a friend with him.
Yes.
Go ahead.
He just seemed on edge. I handed him the money. It was cash. I left. I refused to give him any more money until he can prove to me that he is clean.
Are you serious with me? Are you serious with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have that conversation with her, Mr. Mara?
No, I did not. And I was agitated that day when she showed up at my house because she was already late by 2 weeks dropping off the payment.
Well, let me tell you. I don't know whether she has a drug problem or not. But certainly she has a euphoria about life. You set your own standards. You owe him this money. If you think that he's doing something that you don't approve of, you don't have to be his friend anymore, but you got to pay him back his money.
I understand that, Your Honor.
Right.
I understand
What do you
that.
mean you understand that?
If the money is not the problem.
Just a second. Let me ask you a couple of questions.
Sure.
In October, you say you went there with your 2 children.
Correct.
Your 2 children were living with you or visiting with you?
They were visiting with me.
And where were you working in October of 2005?
I was not working at the time.
How old were you?
28.
28, you have 2 children, you're not working. Who are you living with?
My husband. My husband has a very good paying job. Again, Your Honor, money is not the problem.
Well, money is the problem, madam, because you owe him the money.
But
Just because your husband has a good paying job, you have 2 children. How much child support do you send your former husband? How much child support do you send your former husband?
$100 a week.
I don't believe you. And if your ex-husband was here, he would tell me the same thing, because I can tell that you just lied to me. If you have a current husband that makes a lot of money and you don't have custody of your children because you were somehow rendered an inappropriate parent, the least you can do is have a job and send money every week to help support them and pay your debts. I mean, clearly, from what you tell me, your history is such that you had 2 children, you went into basic training, you left children with the husband. You flunked out of basic training because you didn't go into the Army. So clearly, you've had a troubled life.
I did graduate.
So where are you? What?
I did graduate basic, Your Honor. It was a medical discharge.
Let me explain something to you, madam.
Okay.
I believe very little of what you tell me. The only thing that I do believe is that you have done things in your 28 years, that some things that you are not proud of, and acted irresponsibly. Would that be a fair statement? Certainly, you didn't have enough credit to get your own loan, right?
Correct.
Well, that would lead me to believe that you did certain things in your life that you weren't proud of.
Correct, Your Honor.
You had 2 children that weren't in your custody. That would suggest to me that as a mother, you did other things that you weren't proud of.
Your Honor,
so
that's
where
not
are you
true.
judgmentally to say he was a little bit quirky, a little bit off, he didn't greet my children, he has to prove to me that he wasn't using drugs? Get it together and start looking in your own backyard before you start judging other people. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,520.
Spangler versus Trevino. Step forward, please.
25-year-old Catherine Spangler is suing her former roommate, 24-year-old Allison Trevino, for rent, a PlayStation 2, and for putting holes in her bedroom wall.
Ms. Spangler, the defendant moved into your home. You rented her a room, according to you. She left without paying rent. She made a hole in one of the walls in the bedroom, I gather, where she was living. And you also claim that she owes you for a PlayStation that she took and did not return. Ms. Trevino says that there was no set rent, that she was perfectly prepared to pay for the hole that she made accidentally in her bedroom, and that the PlayStation was old and it broke. How did you find her?
Shh. Ryan and I went to a concert one night and met her at a bar.
Yes.
And we became friends. And she was with her then fiance, Chris, at the time, and they later broke up, which left her without a place to live.
Well, you met her at a bar. On what date?
November, early November.
And when did she move in with you?
In May of '05.
You met her in early November of '04?
Correct.
So you knew her for a while before she moved in?
Yep.
Oh, fine. And you liked her?
Uh-huh, we were friends.
Good. She needed a place to stay because she broke up with the boyfriend. She called you.
Mm-hmm.
What did you say to her? What did she say to you?
I said that I would need to talk to Ryan because Ryan and I own the house together. Ryan and I broke up, so that left me with the house to myself, and I did have 2 empty rooms to rent out. I called Ryan and discussed an amount, and he said $400, and I called back Allie, and I explained to her that $200 would go to me every month, and $200 would go to Ryan every month, and that was agreed upon, and she moved in May.
Did she pay the money in May?
Yes, she did.
June?
June, she paid Ryan $200, and she couldn't afford to pay me $200. I said that that was fine if she waited another month to pay me.
And what happened in July?
She paid me. She didn't have the June.
So she still owed you $200. Leave.
She left November 3rd. I mean, her stuff is still in our house.
Just a sec. August, did she pay you?
Yes, she did.
September?
September, she owes Ryan $200. She paid me.
She doesn't know anything. He's not a party to this lawsuit. October?
She failed to pay both.
Was she still there in October?
Yes.
Right.
Basically, when I talked to Katie on the phone to move in with her, I explained to her that I was in a lot of trouble with my finances. My boyfriend at the time had kicked me out. I'd been giving him all of my paychecks, so I was really behind in money. And basically, you know, we worked on an agreement to where I could pay her whenever I had the money. That was kind of like how it worked out.
Pay her what?
Just whatever money I had to give to her.
But she says that you've been giving her money regularly.
I have been giving her money.
Regularly?
Except for the months that I didn't have the money.
Just a second, but regularly, in the same amount. $400?
Well, I missed it June. I gave her as much as I could.
$400, $200, $400, $400, $400. I mean, that is a set amount. You can't get any more set than that. Why didn't you pay in June?
I didn't have enough money, and I explained that to her.
Why didn't you pay in October?
Well, basically, we had agreed because I didn't have the money that I would give her as much as I could, being the amount if I had to have paid rent, the $400.
So instead of saying to you, don't pay me anything, she said, well, give me what you can.
Right. And I was giving her what I could. Well, the last month, she and I were sharing the house, and her ex had moved out, and he wanted to move back into the house. Therefore, we both had to move out. Once again, I was low on funds. I needed to find the money to find a deposit on a new apartment.
Yes, I'm not interested, Ms. Trevino, in your trials and tribulations.
Okay.
I just changed my mind. She owes you $800 in rent because I assume that you have to give the co-owner of the house his rent.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So she owes you $800 in rent. Now, what about this hole that you put in the room?
It was an accident, and we had someone who was going to fix it for free. And they went ahead and had it fixed without even saying anything to me about it, and then tried to charge me for it.
Good. That's what she should do. She doesn't have to rely on you to have somebody fix it for free. Put up.
Besides that, they wouldn't let me come and get any of my stuff unless I'd given them the money. I didn't have the money to give them. So they say my stuff's still there. It's because they won't give it to me.
How much was it to fix the hole in the wall?
The damage is actually still there.
Can I see a picture of it, please?
Yeah. That's funny. They sent me a receipt saying that they had it fixed.
Well, if they did that, then they weren't being honest with you.
Right.
I just want to see a hole in the wall.
I also have the estimate for the damages.
How'd you do this damage to the wall?
It was an accident.
Would you just tell me how it happened?
We were moving all my furniture out and we fell into the wall. Like all my bed and like my
fell
dresser.
into the wall?
I did. There was a table and my bed and like other furniture that was in there. And I had told her about it, so it wasn't like a shock or anything.
Would
And
have
I
been a
offered
shock
to
to
fix
me.
it. It was an accident.
Do you work?
Yes.
What do you do?
I'm a makeup artist.
Where?
I was for Mac, and now I live in Utah. I work for Lancome.
Full time?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. So you have plenty of dough. $875
I don't
so
have
far.
plenty of dough.
I'm speaking. Don't interrupt me. Now, put your hand down. We fixed the hole in the wall. $75 is cheap enough to fix this hole in the wall. It's good that you can get somebody to fix it for $75.
Yeah,
$800 for rent. And tell me about the PlayStation.
The PlayStation she had taken from the living room and put into her room because her DVD player broke, and it has a DVD component into it. And I think she just accidentally took it when she was moving out all of her things. And then she called Ryan and said that she was going to give it back to him, and they arranged a date and meeting spot. And she failed to show up, and then she called 2 weeks later and just stated that it had broken.
What purse do you have in the house?
I'm not sure. There's boxes in the garage.
There's clothing, There's clothing, a couple of cabinets, dressers type things.
How long have they been there?
Since the beginning of November, they've been put in the garage because somebody else is in that room now.
Oh. Can I please say something?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
What do you want?
Well, my dresser, which is like a $500 dresser, I had like a matched bedroom set, was in the garage, and Katie's band had like a band thing at their house, and her friends had moved my $500 dresser into a shed, which is very heavy. I can't move it on my own, and it rained and damaged it, and all my clothes were in it, and all my clothes were like all moldy from there, and I couldn't move it on my own. But then when I went to go have it moved, I had someone to help me. They wouldn't let me come pick up my stuff, including my boxes and my other nightstand, which was in the garage, which was part of the match set. So...
Where's the PlayStation?
It's broken. I already told them that.
When did you purchase the PlayStation?
It's about 3 years old.
How much was it when you purchased it?
It was $200 when I purchased it.
So if you went to sell it at the time that you took it, maybe you'd get 25 or 50 bucks for it. Is that a fair statement? Good. Sell her dresser. Got it? What? Sell her dresser. She's abandoned the property. It's been in your home now for a period of over 6 months.
That's not true. I did not abandon it.
Just a second. I've just ruled that you've abandoned it.
They wouldn't let me come and get it.
Listen to me. Shh.
Oh, my goodness.
Sell it and buy a new PlayStation. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Thank you very much. That's all. Just for the plaintiff, amount of $875. Goodbye.
Excuse me, next up, number 564 on the calendar in the matter of Buckingham Kelly versus O'Keefe. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat.
Miss Buckingham, this is your daughter, I assume?
Yes, ma'am.
And this young man used to be her boyfriend.
Correct.
Your complaint, what are you laughing at?
Never dated, ma'am.
You bailed him out of jail.
Correct.
And you want him to pay you back.
Correct.
And Mr. O'Keefe says, thank you very much. He never asked you to bail him out. He doesn't know your dime.
Correct.
How did you know him? He's not related to you, right?
Right.
So, if he's not your daughter's boyfriend, why in the world would you bail him out of jail?
He called me crying from jail about
Well, how did you?
one night.
He didn't get your number randomly. How did you know?
No, ma'am. He had an interest in my daughter, and we also worked together.
When you said that mean?
They went out to dinner. She spent time at his place. He would come pick her up. They would go to the show.
Is that right?
Yes.
Did you think he was a boyfriend of yours?
We dated. We were seeing each other. You know, that's the impression that I got. We all worked together, and he was leaving me notes on my desk and things like that, you know.
What kind of notes was he leaving on your desk?
Just like, you look cute today, let's go out later. And, like, that was on a daily basis. I mean, to me, it became pretty apparent that we were seeing each other. We were exclusive. I wasn't seeing anybody else. And as far
Did you have an intimate relationship with him?
No.
Well, maybe that's his problem, you see. Because maybe he thinks that unless you have an intimate relationship with somebody, you can't call him a boyfriend. Is that what you think, sir?
Yeah, I never dated her.
Well, what does that mean?
Together.
What does a date mean to you? Did you take her? Listen,
Dating
look,
to me is...
look at me. I'll ask you questions better, and then maybe I'll let you talk. Did you take her out for dinner?
No, we never went out for dinner.
Did you take...
He did. Multiple times he took me out to dinner.
Refresh his recollection. Maybe he has short-term memory loss. Where did you go for dinner?
The time when the place, there was a seafood place, it was closed, and then we went down, we went to Ponderosa, it was the only place that was open.
And we went and saw a movie together. With her?
The Ponderosa we went to during a work get-together.
How many people went?
At least 10 to 12.
Nobody was there except me and him, and every place was closed, and our work gets off at 4. No place was open. They were like one of the only places we had to go.
So he didn't think you were having a relationship, but you thought you were having a relationship, and you all worked together.
Correct.
So he called you crying from jail. When?
It was March 29th, 10:30 that evening. He had not showed up for work for several days. We all at work had become concerned that he had not called in.
Where did you work?
For a high school advertising agency in Crown Point.
Did you call her at 10:30 at night on the 29th of March?
I did, Your Honor.
What did you say to him, and what did he say to you?
He was crying. He was upset. He said, I've been arrested. I wrecked my motorcycle. You've got to help me. You've got to get me out of jail. I can't get a hold of my mother. I can't get a hold of my father. I did know his parents were divorced based on the relationship he had with my daughter. And he said he needed help. He needed bailed out of jail. He thought it would be about $4,500. He asked me if I could help him. He was concerned about losing his job and therefore losing his apartment. And he gave me his Social Security number, his father's name, and his attorney's name, and asked me to please call and please help him and bail him out.
Did you have his Social Security number?
Yes, ma'am.
What is it?
Would you like for me to read it to you?
I would.
It is 51.
And he gave it to you on the phone on the 29th of March?
Yes, ma'am.
Incorrect.
Okay. Shh. I'll get to you. Did you try calling his attorney?
I left his attorney a voicemail. By this time, it was about 11 p.m., and my daughter and I went to the police station, got a bail bondsman, which I have...
on the 29th?
Yes, ma'am. I have his business card here, along with the bail bonds.
How much did you have to give the bail bondsman?
$4,500.
Okay.
Mr. O'Keefe had told me on the phone that he thought the bond would be about $450 for 2 unpaid traffic tickets. After I put the $4,500 on my Visa card, I found out there was forgery charges, there was driving while suspended, resisting arrest, theft. And I knew none of that before I put the money on my credit card and the bail bonds were given to me.
Did you appear in court, Mr. O'Keefe, on the 8th of April?
I did, ma'am.
And what happened to the forgery and theft charge?
They were dismissed.
And what happened to the other charge, the resisting, reckless driving?
I believe they were amended with no license in possession.
And what happened on that charge?
I don't recall. I just believe that they were amended. Nothing ever happened from it.
Well, did you pay a fine, sir?
Yeah, I paid fines, yes.
Well, then you pled guilty.
Yes.
Either you plead guilty, plead not guilty, you go to trial, you take a plea. There are very few options. So you pled guilty. Do you have a certificate of disposition of dismissal on the forgery and theft charges?
I would be able to get them, yes.
Well, today's the day, sir. Today's the court date.
Understand.
What arrangement, Miss Buckingham, did you make with regard to the repayment of this $4,500 bail?
He told me on the phone, if you can bail me out of jail, you'll have the money back within 3 days. I have over $2,600 saved at my apartment in a coffee can. It was the 29th of March of '05. He was getting ready to send in his taxes. He said then he would have the rest of the money from his tax return and that I would have the money back. If he did not get enough money back from his tax return, that his father would help pay the bail bonds.
But originally, Miss Buckingham, didn't he tell you that he thought the bail would be about $450?
Correct.
So why was he talking in terms of $2,600?
I have no idea.
I didn't even know how much my bail was. Had I known it would have been that much, I would have never even asked my parents to get me out of jail. I would have sat there.
On the 29th of March, how many phone calls did you make?
I believe 3.
The first one was to whom?
To my father.
And what happened with that phone call?
My father owns a bar, and being the owner of the bar, he was unable to leave the bar to come get me.
Oh, I want you to tell me the conversation that you had with somebody.
The only person that I did get in contact with that night was Miss Buckingham.
No, no, no. That's not what I asked you. I said I want you to tell me the conversation you had with your father.
I said that I had been arrested. I'm at Lake County Jail. Can you please come bail me out?
And he said, sorry, I can't leave my place of business.
Exactly.
Cross out father. Who was the next person that you called?
The next person I called was my mother. Was unable to get a hold of her.
And what was the purpose of the call to your mother after the call to your father?
The same, to let her know that I was there and if someone can come get me.
No mother?
Correct.
Then you called the plaintiff?
Yes.
What did you call the plaintiff for?
She was also a co-worker.
What did you call the plaintiff for?
To let her know that I was in jail and to let her know that I would be...
Baloney!
Obtained.
You can't even say that with a straight face, O'Keefe. You can't even say it with a straight face because you didn't figure out where I was going. You didn't figure out until it was too late.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
So your father didn't come in.
Jennifer Kelly claimed Jennifer's ex-boyfriend Ryan O'Keefe owes for bail money. Marie claims Ryan was crying when he called her from jail.
Well, let's see the pathology of what you did that evening. You called your father in a panic and said, can you come and bail me out? And your father, who was probably had it up to here with you, said, I'm working. I'm not coming to bail you out. Then you start to sweat, and you call your mother to, according to you, come and bail you out. You can't even get her on the phone. Then you say, well, now I'm going to do the responsible thing. It's 11 o'clock at night. I'm going to call Miss Buckingham and tell her, please tell the boss I'm not able to come to work. You haven't been at work a whole day.
Right.
But please tell the boss I'm not able to come to work tomorrow. I don't want to lose my job. Do you know how ridiculous that sounds, Mr. O'Keefe?
As ridiculous as it sounds, I wouldn't, not that jail is the best place to be, it is not. I would have sat there and sat my time out to meet with a judge to get a bond reduced or until I got a hold of someone.
Well, you got a hold of your mother and you got a hold of your father, and your mother didn't want any part of you.
My father would have come within a few days or so.
Your father didn't want any part of you.
He couldn't come.
He didn't want any part of you. He owns a bar. How big a bar?
Pretty good sized bar.
Pretty good sized bar. How many employees does he have?
6 to 8.
He could send one of his employees. All I know is if I got a call from my son who had never been in trouble before, and he said, come and bail me out, I wouldn't say I'm very sorry. I'm doing a television program. You'll have to sit there and wait till I'm finished. And I got news for you. A lot more people depend on me than depend upon your father.
Understand.
So your father didn't come and get you because he's had it up to here with your nonsense. Because if you had outstanding warrants, sir, and you had outstanding warrants, your father has come and bailed you out before, and you haven't shown up.
He's always, yeah,
He hasn't, and that's what happened. He came, bailed you out before, and you blew off court, which is why they issued warrants for your arrest. Your father said, you sit there. Then you called your mother. You figured maybe I get to my mother. Maybe my mother will feel a little bit softer. But don't tell me you called her and just told her, please report to the boss that I'm not coming to work the next day. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I think that you're used to getting over on people, and it seems to me that your parents have had enough of you. So has Miss Buckingham. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $4,500.
Stalavari versus Stalavari. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
Mr. Stalavari, this is your former wife. You've been divorced for several years, and it is your claim that subsequent to the divorce, because you were on very good terms, you made 2 loans to her. One was for a lawnmower that your boys wanted, and one was for a large-screen television set. And it is your claim that she still owes you money on those things, and she's stopped making the payments. Your former wife says that she's paid off those things. I assume you can prove that to me. And that the reason you're here is that she took you to domestic relations court 2 months ago for back child support. Your support payments were increased, you were angry, and that's why you're here. Is that the case?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Mr. Stalavari, when did you purchase this lawnmower?
It was purchased in 2001.
And when did you purchase the TV?
It was purchased November 3rd of '03.
And when were you divorced?
The finalization was in 1995.
How many children do you have?
3.
And have the children always been in the custody of their mother?
Yes.
How much child support were you paying?
I was to pay $400 plus half the cost of everything on top of that, in which I complied.
$400 plus half the cost of what?
Of half the cost of my children, of whatever they needed, and you know.
You don't mean half of her mortgage or rent or anything else?
No. I'm talking about school clothing.
Okay, so you're giving her $400 a month for 2 children?
Yes, ma'am.
And the 1 child?
I was paying $300 plus half everything that he needed, you know.
Your 20-year-old is emancipated?
He is now.
Were you always current in your child support?
Yes, I was.
What happened when you went to the family court in January?
Well, what happened then was that the judge decided that I should pay child support of $459 until my son reached the age of 18, and that I was to pay that back child support for 2 months that I'd been in a very serious accident. I couldn't pay, so it totaled of $3,400.
$3,400, $300 a month times 2 months doesn't come to $3,400.
Ma'am, he paid what he wanted when he wanted, and that's the way the judge seen it. Sometimes it was $200 a month.
Just a second. Well, I don't understand. Mr. Stalaveri, listen to me very carefully, sir. You told me that you paid regular child support, which was at that point $300 a month, and that you didn't pay for 2 months because of a serious accident. That would have been $600.
That was including February's too, ma'am.
Well, then, if it's including another month, that would have been $900. And yet, the judge found you in arrears, according to you, of $3,400.
Yes. Well,
that's not math. I'm very bad at math, but that's even I'm
Your
not
Honor,
that
we're
bad.
not here for my child support. We're here because I'm suing her for these.
No, listen to me, sir. The motivation for your being here for a 2001 loan is important to me, because if she stopped paying, that is now 5.5 years old, I want to know what inspires you to come to court and tell me that she hasn't made the payments. So while we are not here for child support, your veracity as to what motivates you to come here, sir, is important to me.
You bet.
Now, good. Now, when did she stop making payments on the lawnmower?
She has not made payments on the lawnmower since last August.
August of 2005?
Yes. She made sporadic payments. I mean, I've got paperwork right here, Your Honor, that shows that she paid when she wanted to.
Just a second. Is the last payment she made in August 2005?
Yes.
Now, what was this lawnmower for?
My sons wanted to start a little lawnmower business, make some money, and that was fine with me.
How old were they?
I believe my son was 12 years old. My oldest boy was 16.
Yes.
And they had talked to me a little bit about this, and I told them, I said, okay, you know, I can deal with this. You know, you can use my Sears account. But I also talked to this woman here, Jolene. I says, as long as you will take care of this payment, I will put it on my Sears credit card.
What about splitting the things for the boys down the middle?
Well, the thing about that was I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford to make these payments.
Listen to me. You just said to me that your arrangement with your former wife was that you were going to make these child support payments, which were minimal payments for 3 children, but you were going to pay for half of whatever else the boys' expenses were.
Well, this wasn't their expense. This was a money-making deal for them. It wasn't my expense. It was theirs. This is what they told me.
How much did you pay towards the lawnmower?
Ma'am, what I can prove that I myself paid is $2,900.
What was the cost of the lawnmower, Mr. Stalaveri?
$2,000.
$2,000. Well, she's paid $2,900. She's going to demonstrate that to me.
I'm glad.
Can I see it, please? Other than the Sears account that he has, do you have your own Sears account?
No, I do not, ma'am. The front page shows his account number.
$2,900, Mr. Stalaveri. No, $29.25, as a matter of fact.
Do you want to see what I've got? Let's see what I've got, Your Honor.
Sure.
Okay, right here. There's other things that was bought on this account beside the lawnmower that I'm not sure that she didn't buy them. I've got from my bank.
I understand that, but I don't know whether these were your items or her items. She does not have a Sears account herself. The only Sears item that was being paid out of this account was the lawnmower. And she has bank withdrawals to your Sears account in the amount of $2,900.
Well, if the lawnmower only cost $25, why'd she pay $400 more money?
Sir,
I mean, I'm not showing an account with an old...
I'm speaking. If the lawnmower costs $2,500 and there are interest payments in addition...
That's right.
In addition thereto.
That's right, Your Honor. There is. And there's late payments and...
That may be. She's paid enough on the lawnmower for your children from 2001. What about the TV?
Well, you know, I don't think this is going anywhere, Your Honor.
I don't think so either, sir. Are you leaving?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You're a very angry man, and I suggest you get over being so angry.
Ex-wife Jolene Stalaveri owes for a lawnmower and a big screen TV.
Are you leaving?
No, I want to go with...
Then answer my question. What about the TV?
Your Honor, in November 3rd of 03, she approached me again, and she wanted to buy a TV, and she'd made pretty good payments on the Sears account, and I looked at it until I found out that ruined my credit. So I said, okay.
How much was the TV, sir? How much was the TV, is my question.
TV was $3,900.
Okay. How much did you pay?
I paid $4,771, ma'am.
Can I see proof of that, please?
This is the last payment that was made, ma'am, in the amount of $25.41. Told me I owed $26.41. I had just sent a payment in the amount of $100, so I paid off the balance of $25.41.
Sir, can I see the last statement you received from R.C. Willie for this television set? This statement was as of 1/15/06, and there's a balance of $176.62. I have no idea what that's for, but I have her payment of $2,541 to them.
What's going on here is they were going to repossess the TV because she hadn't made any payments, and she'd been late on several. Exactly 7 payments, actually 9 payments she was late on.
Yes.
Okay, well, what had happened was she had went in and charged a bunch of stuff on my R.C. Willie's account.
Show me proof of that, sir.
Okay.
Just a second. Show me proof with her signature on it.
Okay. Your Honor, would you help me with, where is, oh, this is the California account with, here it is.
That was prior to the TV, ma'am.
Just a second, please.
How about the marble glasses and stuff?
These were all picked up.
This was April of 2004.
That's right, Your Honor.
Okay.
I was in California at that time.
That was with his approval, but no, it was not April of 2004.
Okay. Well, it says the date was 4/9/04. That's the date on this thing, and he has Jolene's carpet.
Your Honor, the
Just a
address.
second. This is for $300.
Okay.
I have 2 bills here, paid and taken. May 2004 for $44, May of 2004 for $19, and a beanbag for $89.
These are charges.
Just a second. Did you purchase these things?
With his acknowledgement, yes, ma'am.
Just a second. I assume, sir, that you got bills from those things the next month when you received a bill sometime in 2004.
Yes.
And I assume that if she did not have your permission to use that account, you would have stopped that account and said to them, I'm closing this account. No one other than me is allowed to use this account.
Your Honor, I wasn't even home. I wasn't home.
Who was taking care of your
My
bills,
daughter
sir?
was.
Well, that's your problem, sir. Mr. Silvestri, you're a very angry man, and I suggest you get over being so angry. Mr. Silvestri.
Stollivari, ma'am.
Stollivari. You made 3 children with this lady, and you're divorced a very long time. She raised children. I assume that you had input in your children's lives, aside from the fact that you tell me you went to California for a period of time. She raised your 3 children. And we're not talking about, as far as I can see, a lady who stiffed you by saying, I'm not going to pay for the lawnmower. I'm not going to pay for the TV. The kids watch the TV. It's a big television set. If you were a nice guy, you would pay for it. She went in and she paid for it. And if she bought $300 worth of carpeting 2.5 years ago, that's not something that you should be so exasperated about, with the exception of the fact that you just got hit with over $3,000 in back child support. That's your motivation for being here, and that's very unfortunate, sir, because they're your children. Your case is dismissed. That's all.
Ladies are excused. You may step out.
Give me my paperwork. I want my paperwork.
I respect...
Bolton versus Haggerty. Step forward, please.
Randa Bolton is suing the father of her grandchild, 22-year-old repo man David Haggerty, for medical bills resulting from her daughter's pregnancy.
Miss Bolton. Mr. Haggerty is your daughter's boyfriend.
Correct.
I assume this is your daughter.
Yes.
And they have a child together.
Correct.
And your daughter is how old?
18.
How old is their child?
3 months.
There was a time when Mr. Haggerty came to live in your home, claimed that he owes you for some medical expenses that you incurred when your daughter was pregnant and not covered by insurance. And in addition, you claim that he owes you for rent.
Correct.
Now, Miss Bolton, your daughter became pregnant when she was 17?
Correct.
She was living home at the time?
Yes.
He was not living there?
No.
And how old was Mr. Haggerty when she became pregnant?
21.
Is that right, Mr. Haggerty?
Mm-hmm.
When did he move into your house?
In January.
So when he came to move into your house in January, what happened next?
I had asked him to pay me rent. I had asked him for $50 a week, and he was unsure that he could afford that. So I offered to allow him to do things around the house, such as cleaning the gutters, painting the garage, in order to work off those services to live in my home.
And?
And nothing ever became of it.
Is that what happened, Mr. Haggerty?
Somewhat.
What were you supposed to do?
Like she said to do some things around the house. I cut the grass, I put the gutter up. The gutter was put up.
Well, then what was the disagreement about?
I had no problem with it. It's just they live in a very large house. That's a big house to be painting and all that stuff.
Well, what kind of work were you doing?
I repossess cars.
Repossess them?
Yes.
You work for a company?
Yes.
And you get paid a weekly salary?
Every 2.
Could you stand still, please? I get my Dramamine this morning. So while you were living rent-free, you were working and earning a living. What were you saving your money for?
The baby.
Did you save money?
A little bit.
How much did you save?
Probably like $2,000.
What else were you doing with your money?
Buying food for me and her and helping my dad out.
What do you mean helping your dad out? What does that mean?
He's kind of behind on his bills at the house and things, so I helped him out when he needed it.
Stand still. You can't help your dad out until you take care of yourself. You have to take care of your own expenses first. But the agreement that he had with you, Miss Bolton, was sort of a vague agreement, which is you said, I want you to give me $50 a week rent, or you got to do some chores around the house. Did he ever cut the grass?
He had cut the grass, but that was one of the...
Did he cut the grass?
Once or twice.
Did he put up the gutter in the house?
Yes, he did.
Right. Now let's get to the medical expenses. I gather from your complaint that when your daughter became pregnant, you thought she was covered under her father's insurance.
Correct.
Turned out that she was not covered for maternity-related expenses under her father's insurance, so that you had a certain amount of out-of-pocket expenses.
Yes.
What were those out-of-pocket expenses?
$1,506.20.
Had you ever discussed that with Mr. Haggerty?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me about the discussion, Mr. Haggerty.
We were on our way home from my father's house, and she said that she had a bill, and how was I planning on paying it? Top of my head, I don't know. That's what I said. I don't know. I said,
What do you mean you don't know?
I didn't know. I don't know how to answer. It kind of struck me because, as far as I knew, all the other bills were taken care of in the insurance.
Not your insurance.
No.
Not insurance you paid for.
No.
Somebody else's insurance.
Yes.
Let me ask you, remember the night that you and her daughter decided to have this baby? You remember that night?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Was she in bed with you?
No.
Was her father in bed with you?
No.
There were only 2 of you.
Yes.
And only one of you was an adult.
Yes, you're right.
Did anybody ever put it to you that way?
No.
I'm putting it to you that way. You don't save $2,000 and support your father when you choose to act like an idiot, choose to make a baby with a teenager, and then say to somebody else, you take care of it. I got to take care of my father. Let your father take care of himself. He doesn't know you for rent. You invited him into your home, and you made some sort of an arrangement. He didn't do enough work. Well, I'm not going to sit here and figure out how much it was when he mowed the lawn and how much credit he's going to get for putting up a gutter. He and your daughter, I assume, moved out of your house based upon what I read, and they are now living with his father. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, at least if you're giving your father money, you're living there.
They are giving his father money.
I assume they're giving his father money.
Because he forces them. I never did.
You stand up. What's your first name?
Deanna.
Deanna, you have a son or a daughter?
Daughter.
She's 3 months old?
Correct.
When was the last time your mother saw her?
Last Sunday.
Good. You take her to visit?
Every Sunday.
Had a girl. Okay. I'm not even going to yell at you.
Okay, thank you.
See that? Judged for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,506, which is the amount of your unreimbursed medical bill.
Xin chào tất cả các bạn, lại là mình đây. Các bạn ơi, hôm nay chúng mình sẽ cùng nhau viết 3 từ trong cái phần đọc phần 2 này. Y tá, dã quỳ và đá quý. Ra bài tập là chúng mình đã học thuộc rồi, thì hôm nay chúng mình sẽ cùng nhau luyện viết về bài viết có chữ Y dài. Y tá, dã quỳ và đá quý. Mỗi một từ này các bạn sẽ viết ít nhất cho mình là 3 dòng. Tôi sẽ viết mẫu, rồi các bạn sẽ gì đây? Lần lượt viết theo nhé. Từ đầu tiên, y tá. Từ thứ hai, dã quỳ. Từ thứ ba, đá quý. Y tá, dã quỳ, đá quý. Mỗi một từ này các bạn sẽ luyện viết cho mình là 3 dòng. 3 dòng y tá, 3 dòng dã quỳ và 3 dòng đá quý. Vậy tớ sẽ cùng các bạn luyện viết về y tá đầu tiên nhé. Tớ sẽ viết mẫu đầu dòng 1, 2, 3 dòng, và sau đấy các bạn viết tiếp cho đến hết dòng nhé. Từ đầu tiên đó là từ y tá. Rồi dòng thứ hai cũng là y tá này. Dòng thứ ba cũng vậy. Sau đó các bạn sẽ lần lượt viết hết mấy dòng? Viết hết 3 dòng. Được chưa? Rồi từ thứ hai chúng mình cần luyện viết đấy từ dã quỳ. Dã quỳ là một loại hoa đấy các bạn ạ. Hoa dã quỳ rất là thơm. Quả y quy huyền quỳ. Dã quỳ. 1, 2, 3 dòng. Tớ viết mẫu chữ đầu dòng thôi. Còn các bạn sẽ lần lượt viết gì? Viết tiếp cho đến khi nào hết dòng thì chúng mình sẽ dừng lại. Và từ cuối cùng hôm nay chúng ta học viết đấy là từ đá quý. Đa sắc đá. Quả y quy sắc quý. Đá quý. Đá quý. Tương tự như vậy các bạn sẽ viết hết dòng thứ nhất, xuống dòng thứ hai và hết dòng thứ 3. Lần lượt luyện viết hết cho mình 3 từ này nhé. Rồi, như vậy hôm nay chúng mình đã cùng nhau luyện viết về bài 28, những từ ngữ liên quan đến y dài. Để học tốt hơn, tiếng Việt phát âm chuẩn hơn nữa thì các bạn nhớ là đừng quên nhấn like và ấn nút đăng ký kênh của mình để cùng gặp mình trong những video học tập tiếp theo. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại các bạn.